LoveLore Library. Chapter 1141. When Li Chang and General Kars contacted again, both sides showed the sincerity of cooperation. On some details, they did not adopt a seesaw attitude. General Kars readily gave up some of his own interests, but he also got a lot of his own interests. For example, all the military power of Country X was in Li Chang's charge. General Kars no longer kept his own army, but Li Chang's army was stationed nationwide, including his presidential palace. The civil affairs of Country X were fully responsible for the Kars government. Only in the case of enacting laws and major policy changes, they needed to be submitted to Yang Ming for review. Other things were decided by General Kars. In other words, General Kars dealt with the internal affairs, and Li Chang dealt with the external affairs. In fact, this agreement was not equal, but General Kars had no way because he could not calm the civil strife. Whether it was the Northern Alliance or the Southern Alliance, General Kars would not be their opponent. Therefore, if General Kars wanted to continue to sit in the president's position, he could only cooperate with Yang Ming. The main officials of Kars were also very much in favor of the current cooperation. After all, cooperation was their only way out. If they did not cooperate, they would be pushed down by the Southern Alliance and the Northern Alliance. After cooperation, they could continue to sit in their current positions, and the security situation of Country X would be improved qualitatively. Only in this way could General Kars develop the country's construction with peace of mind. Without war, there would be taxes and benefits, so General Kars was happy to see this. After signing the contract, General Kars' heart was also very refreshed. Moreover, Yang Ming actually agreed that the new Country X could be named Kars Dukedom, which made Kars very proud as a founding hero. In fact, Yang Ming didn't care much about the name of Country X. This was an insignificant matter. Yang Ming could only live behind the scenes instead of walking in the front stage, so in the eyes of outsiders, General Kars was still fully responsible for the governance of Country X. After the contract was signed, Li Chang began a devastating attack on the Northern Alliance at lightning speed because Yang Ming also said that he did not allow the existence of other armed forces in the country, so what Li Chang had to do was to kill them all. The leader of the Northern Alliance, Johnston, was happily thinking about the future with his allies. "Hey, man, our current strength is very strong. It is enough to fight under the wall of General Kars," Johnston said proudly. "Yeah, when the time comes, Johnston, you will be the new president of Country X." His partner was also very excited. He was originally the leader of a small armed force and had no chance to make a name for himself. But this time, if Johnston's coup was successful, he would at least be considered a hero and be able to exchange for the position of prime minister. However, just as the two of them were imagining the future, Johnston's orderly ran in, sweating profusely. "Not good, General Johnston. What's wrong? What's the big deal?" Johnston frowned and reprimanded the orderlies with a stern tone. He was about to win, so why were his subordinates still panicking? "General Kars' army has come to us. What should we do?" the orderly asked anxiously. "General Kars." Johnston sneered disdainfully. "Do you think I don't know his strength? Can it be compared with us now? In terms of the number of people, we are twice as many as him." However, what Johnston didn't know was that it was not the quantity but the quality of the soldiers. His temporary team might be able to compete with General Kars' former armed forces, but it was simply a world of difference with Li Chang's armed forces. Just as Johnston spoke with an arrogant attitude, a bomb fell from the sky and directly blew up the Northern Alliance's headquarters into ruins. Johnston died with his eyes wide open. He didn't understand why General Kars still had a bomber. The Southern Alliance also suffered a devastating blow. Even some small and medium-sized armed forces were attacked to varying degrees. For a time, darkness shrouded the entire Country X. all the remaining armed forces were in a state of panic. Everyone was in danger. They didn't understand when General Kars got such powerful foreign aid. Li Chang's military equipment was continuously transported by Old Buffon on ships. It could be said that Old Buffon was now eager to do something for Yang Ming. He and his wife had become Yang Ming's disciples, and he seized every opportunity to curry favor. Therefore, Old Buffon didn't need Yang Ming to say anything. Some of the military weapons and equipment within Old Buffon's ability were all imported to Country X. For a time, Li Chang's backup force was sufficient. General Kars could receive detailed reports of victory every day. On his own side, it was actually Li Chang's side. It was just that the two people had already cooperated, so Kars shamelessly turned Li Chang's victory report into his own victory report. There were no casualties on his side. It could be said that this armed forces expulsion war was completely one-sided. General Kars felt that his whole person was now comfortable. He could finally rest easy. These damn opponents, now you finally know how powerful my General Kars partners are, right? In fact, Li Chang's speed had exceeded General Kars' expectations. Although General Kars knew that Li Chang was very strong, he only discovered that Li Chang was much stronger than he imagined when he really experienced it. They could actually fight on multiple fronts. In one day, they destroyed 80% of the armed forces in Country X. This was something that General Kars did not dare to imagine in the past, but now it had become a reality. It could be said that his cooperation with Yang Ming was wise. From then on, there would be no more wars in Country X. In the evening, at Yang Ming's diamond mine, Li Chang held a celebration banquet. It had been changed into the headquarters of the Black Butterfly Alliance forces. In addition to being responsible for assassin affairs and mercenary affairs, it was also responsible for the security of Country X. Kars had now become the second or even the third person in Country X because in front of Li Chang and Yang Ming, Kars could not maintain the majesty and demeanor of the outside world. At Li Chang's side, General Kars was completely like a subordinate who listened to instructions. Captain Li, thank you very much this time. General Kars said from the bottom of his heart. Li Chang smiled slightly after listening. He waved his hand and said, "You don't have to say thank you. Now, Country X is also Mr. Yang's, so doing this is also for ourselves." Yes. After General Kars listened to Li Chang's words, he was somewhat bitter. Indeed, he should face the reality. He was no longer the highest power, but Yang Ming was. Therefore, he did not need to say any words of thanks. It was enough to listen to Yang Ming's orders in the future. Mr. Yang said that after the war is over, he will come here and personally appoint you as the first prime minister of the country, said Li Chang. Then I will trouble Mr. Yang. General Kars also understood that in the current situation, he was no longer suitable to be called the president because the future political road of Country X would become similar to behind-the-scenes imperial power rule. Yang Ming would live behind the scenes, and he would become the manager at the front. Li Chang's words also clearly told General Kars that his future appointment and removal power was completely in the hands of Yang Ming. If he was obedient, then he would always sit in this position. Otherwise, Yang Ming could still appoint others. General Kars also knew this, so he had become much more humble in his words and deeds. At the celebration banquet, the politicians of General Kars all expressed their loyalty to Yang Ming. Li Chang was very satisfied with this. He also gave an explanation to Yang Ming. The title of General Kars also became history, and it became Prime Minister Kars. However, General Kars thought that the Prime Minister sounded better. A general was always like a temporary title. In the past, there were 80 generals in Country X, even if there were not 100. The Prime Minister had established his position in Country X, Shuya's concert was very successful, and Yang Ming naturally attended the celebration banquet of Shuya's concert again. This celebration banquet was very low-key. There were only LoveLore, Yang Ming, Wang Xiaoyan, Alice, and old Buffon and his wife. It could be said that except for Alice, there were only their own people left. Shuya did not expect that after her concert, she would sit at the same table with so many big shots. LoveLore had become the mayor of the city, and Alice was a legend in Europe. The concert was very successful. The first to speak was Yang Ming, which made Alice slightly surprised. In her opinion, at this table, the person with the highest status should be Uncle Buffon. Why did Yang Ming, the guest, speak first? Looking at Uncle Buffon again, there was no annoyance. This made Alice feel a little strange. What is the relationship between Yang Ming and old Buffon? When did the two of them become so familiar with each other? Old Buffon's current appearance was completely like Yang Ming's vassal. This made Alice frown. This Yang Ming is really not simple. He is really like what my brother said. He is a difficult person to deal with, thank you. Shuya smiled sweetly. She picked up the juice in front of her and clinked her glass with Yang Ming. This was a private party. Shuya did not need to drink. She just needed to drink juice. LoveLore also knew that Yang Ming's identity was noble, but he did not know the specifics. So at this moment, he did not dare to make a sound. He just sat there and watched silently. Otherwise, if it were another occasion, LoveLore would be the protagonist. But now, he had become a supporting role. If there were news reporters present, they would be very surprised. The combination of this table was really weird. Shuya had a total of 10 concerts in Europe. This was only the first stop, but the next one was easy to handle. With old Buffon's personal care, it could be said that Shuya could go unhindered in Europe. There would no longer be people who had crooked thoughts about her. Even if someone had this idea, they would weigh their own strength. They were thousands of miles away from old Buffon. Going up would be courting death. Moreover, the matter between Mark Vader and Malajben had become a joke in the upper-class society. These upper-class people knew the real reason for Mark Vader's downfall, so no one was willing to follow in Mark Vader's footsteps. Tonight was the last day to get together. Shuya would board a plane to another city in a while, so Yang Ming particularly cherished this time. It was said to be a celebration banquet, but it had always been Yang Ming and Shuya making eyes at each other. The others had completely become supporting roles. Alice wanted to interject, but Yang Ming said, "Do you want my help?" Alice had no choice but to close her mouth. It made Yang Ming feel very refreshed. For Shuya's departure, Yang Ming was very open-minded. After all, Shuya now had her own career to be busy with, and he also had his own things to do. The two people couldn't stick together endlessly. Parting was just the beginning of the next gathering, so after Yang Ming sent Shuya to the airport, he waved his hand freely. "Are you a little reluctant?" Wang Xiaoyan asked with a smile. "The days ahead are still long, aren't they?" Yang Ming smiled. Wang Xiaoyan was very clear about what Yang Ming had done in Country X. Yang Ming did not hide this from her, so Wang Xiaoyan's mood was also very good. This was a good start. The establishment of the Black Butterfly organization's base in Country X meant that the Black Butterfly had taken an important step toward internationalization. Especially in Country X, a country under the behind-the-scenes control of Yang Ming, all the policies and laws could be said to be decided by Yang Ming. In this way, the development of the Black Butterfly organization was very effective. The development of the Black Butterfly would not be subject to any restrictions because the highest person in charge was Yang Ming. Yang Ming would not be stupid enough to restrict the development and growth of his organization. Also in Europe, inside an old castle. This was the birthplace of the Charles family. Old Charles called his butler, Zhou Tianxiang. Although old Charles was very puzzled about how his son had an intersection with Zhou Tianxiang's daughter, as a father, he still had to fulfill his son's wish. "Master, are you looking for me?" Zhou Tianxiang had been a butler in this family for decades. "Well, Tianxiang, you have a daughter. She is in China, right?" Old Charles smiled, motioned Zhou Tianxiang to sit down, and then said, "Yes, my family is in Songjiang." Why did Master suddenly mention this? Zhou Tianxiang was a little puzzled. He, then don't you miss them? You only have 1 month of vacation time every year, right? Old Charles sighed and asked. It's true that I miss them, but this is also my career. Zhou Tianxiang didn't know why old Charles suddenly asked this. If you miss them, how about bringing them to Europe? Anyway, the castle is very big, and there is no shortage of 2 people. Old Charles said with a smile. Thank you for your kindness, Master. My wife and my daughter have their own careers and studies, as well as their social circles. They will not be used to coming here, said Zhou Tianxiang. Old Charles nodded. Originally, he wanted to use a roundabout strategy to bring Zhou Tianxiang's daughter and wife over. Then, wouldn't his son be in a favorable position? But now listening to Zhou Tianxiang, indeed, it was not the right thing to bring the mother and daughter over. So, after thinking about it, it seemed that he could only be frank. This is the case. Tianxiang, this kid, Charles, saw your daughter in Songjiang. She is called Zhou Jijia, right? She is a very beautiful girl, said old Charles. Oh. Zhou Tianxiang was stunned. He faintly understood the intention of old Charles. It turned out that he had taken such a big circle because of his daughter. However, since old Charles asked, Zhou Tianxiang couldn't not answer, so he said, yes, she is called Zhou Jijia. She is just like a willow tree. Tianxiang, you are too humble. How can Charles, this kid, be infatuated with your beauty? Old Charles waved his hand and smiled. I have something to say, but I don't know if I should say it, this. Zhou Tianxiang naturally guessed what old Charles was going to say, but his daughter already had a boyfriend, and Zhou Tianxiang didn't want to interfere with his daughter's affairs, so he was naturally in a dilemma at this time. Why? You don't want me to say it? Old Charles also faintly felt that this Zhou Tianxiang seemed to be unwilling. What do you mean? My son is interested in your daughter. It is your blessing. You are just a butler. You still want to put on airs with me. Isn't it a bit too much? Master, please say it. Zhou Tianxiang had no choice but to bite the bullet and say it. Old Charles nodded and said, this time I am looking for you to propose marriage. This kid, Charles, is interested in your daughter. I don't know what you think. Old Charles saw Zhou Tianxiang like this, and he was too lazy to beat around the bush. He said it straightforwardly. Master, this matter, forgive me for being unable to do it. Now we are talking about free love. It is not the era of arranged marriages. I don't want to interfere with the marriage of my children. Zhou Tianxiang said helplessly. So, you don't agree? Old Charles frowned. He didn't expect Zhou Tianxiang to refuse him. It's not that I don't agree. If my daughter agrees, then I have nothing to say, but if she doesn't agree, I can't force it, right? Said Zhou Tianxiang. Then what do you mean? Your daughter doesn't like my son, right? Old Charles said with a cold snort. That's not it, but my daughter already has a boyfriend. She will no longer be tempted by Master Charles. Zhou Tianxiang explained. Humph. Old Charles slammed the table and said, Zhou Tianxiang, I will give you a few days to solve this matter, and then give me an answer. Agree to this marriage. We will become in-laws, and then you and I will be on equal footing in this castle. Otherwise, you can pack up and leave. Chapter 1142. Zhou Tianxiang was stunned. He didn't expect old Charles to be so ruthless this time. However, Zhou Tianxiang was really in a dilemma. He didn't want to interfere with his daughter's affairs. Who his daughter liked was her own business. Zhou Tianxiang would only support and not oppose. Originally, he felt that he owed his daughter a lot. He was not at home these years, and he didn't fulfill his responsibility as a father, so he was even less qualified to ask his daughter for anything. However, now there was a quite serious problem. That was, if what old Charles said to him was true, and he really wanted him to pack up and leave, then the matter was a bit big. It wasn't that Zhou Tianxiang was reluctant to part with this job. On the contrary, he was very willing to return to Songjiang and reunite with his family. After all, Mother Zhou's business was also very profitable, and his daughter had grown up. He didn't need to worry too much. How happy would it be for the family of three to live together in peace? However, could Zhou Tianxiang let him go like this? Zhou Tianxiang, the butler, knew better than anyone what the Charles family did. He knew too much about the inside story of the Charles family. Would old Charles let him go? What Zhou Tianxiang was afraid of was that once he left, the assassin sent by old Charles would find him and kill him directly. This was what Zhou Tianxiang was worried about. So after Zhou Tianxiang was called by old Charles to talk, he sat alone in the room and smoked. He didn't know how to solve this matter. The internal phone in the room suddenly rang. Zhou Tianxiang was shocked and hurriedly picked up the phone. It was still old Charles who called. "Butler Zhou, have you considered it?" Old Charles's voice came from the phone, making Zhou Tianxiang very depressed. "Master, this is a big matter after all. You have to let me think about it." Zhou Tianxiang knew that he was delaying time no matter what he said now. He had no good countermeasures at all. What is there to think about? Just tell me if you can or not. I don't have so much patience. Old Charles said, "Let's do this. Tonight, you give me an answer. Otherwise, you can leave directly." "This, okay." Zhou Tianxiang sighed. "What will come will come. It seems that I really can't avoid this disaster this time." Old Charles hung up the phone coldly. Zhou Tianxiang had to make a decision as soon as possible. There was only less than half a day left. From the first day Zhou Tianxiang followed the Charles family, he knew that he might not have a good ending, so he rarely mentioned the things here to Mother Zhou and Zhou Jijia. He just said that he was working for a big family outside. Although Mother Zhou was reluctant, Zhou Tianxiang could bring back a large sum of money every year. Moreover, Zhou Tianxiang said that he would stop after a few years, so Mother Zhou reluctantly agreed. But she didn't know the inside story, so now, Zhou Tianxiang had to confess everything to her. Thinking of this, Zhou Tianxiang sighed, picked up the phone, and dialed Mother Zhou, who was far away on the other side of the world. "Hey, it's me." Zhou Tianxiang's voice was a little low. "Old Zhou, what's wrong? Why are you calling me out of the blue?" Mother Zhou was a little surprised. Generally, Zhou Tianxiang would call her at a fixed time, but today was obviously not. "Something happened to me." Although Zhou Tianxiang didn't want to say it, there was no other way. Some things had to be explained in advance. "Something happened. What do you mean?" Mother Zhou's expression tightened and asked quickly. "Actually, I haven't told you and Jijia the truth. The work I do here." Zhou Tianxiang sighed helplessly. "It's actually being a butler for an assassin organization." "Oh." Mother Zhou was shocked, and her tone was somewhat unnatural. "Old Zhou, today is not April Fool's Day. Are you kidding me?" "No." Zhou Tianxiang said affirmatively, "Dear, listen to me. All this is true. If I can work until I retire, maybe they can let me go, but now I'm afraid it won't work, old Zhou, then you can work until you retire. It's okay. I'm not in a hurry. Jia and I are waiting for you to come back." Mother Zhou was shocked and said quickly, "I'm afraid it won't work." Zhou Tianxiang said, "The manager of the family just made some very excessive requests to me. I can't promise him." "What request?" Mother Zhou was a little excited. "Old Zhou, what request does he want?" "Just promise him. As long as he is there, everything is fine." "Does he want money?" "I can give him all the money on my side." "We don't want anything. It's not a matter of money." Zhou Tianxiang smiled bitterly. "They are not short of money. It's not easy to say. It's the master's son. I don't know why, but he ran to Songjiang. As a result, he saw Jia. This is also a coincidence. I don't know how he recognized Jia as my daughter, and he fell in love with Jia at first sight, so the master just proposed to me." Ah. Mother Zhou only felt that this matter was a bit too dramatic after listening, right? How can this be related? Your master won't use this as an excuse to deal with you, right? It was no wonder that Mother Zhou would be suspicious. After all, this was a place that was far apart. The master's son ran to Songjiang. No matter how he looked at it, this sounded a little strange. "No. I'm sure." Zhou Tianxiang sighed. "This time, I basically can't avoid it. I will now tell you my account in the Swiss bank. There are $60 million in it. I have accumulated this money over the years. Because the number is so huge, I didn't dare to tell you. Now, I will leave this money to you and Jia. Wait." Mother Zhou now really realized the seriousness of the matter. Zhou Tianxiang's tone was already giving his last words. "Old Zhou, have you asked Jia about this matter? Is there some kind of hidden story or misunderstanding?" "Not yet. I will call Jia in a while." Zhou Tianxiang smiled bitterly. "However, there should be no misunderstanding. Then can you promise him first, then delay it? Let's think about it in the long run. Or after you promise him, say that you have to go home to prepare, and then never return to Europe again. Anyway, in China, he can't do anything to you." Mother Zhou said quickly. "AI." Zhou Tianxiang shook his head. "Don't forget what the Charles family does. They are an assassin group. I am all over the world. It can be said that if I am on this earth, I will be in danger of being assassinated, and you will be implicated." Mother Zhou had no concept of assassins, but after listening to Zhou Tianxiang's words, she was very shocked. She didn't know what to do. If that's the case, then, what should I do? Mother Zhou had no way, and her voice sounded a little helpless. "There is no way." Zhou Tianxiang sighed. "Tonight is the last time limit. Now I will call Jia, and then contact you, okay? Mother Zhou was also in a mess now. She didn't know what to do. Zhou Tianxiang dialed Zhou Jiajia's phone number. At this moment, Zhou Jiajia was in the villa, chatting with Yang Ming through a video call. Chen Mengyan and Lin Jiyun were also on the side. The phone rang. It was an unfamiliar number. Zhou Jiajia was stunned for a moment. She hesitated to answer the phone. After all, Yang Ming finally chatted with them. Zhou Jiajia was somewhat reluctant to give up this opportunity. Yang Ming also saw Zhou Jiajia's dilemma over there, so he smiled and said, "Jiajia, go and answer the phone first. Maybe it is your family. I have nothing to do tonight. I will just chat with you all the time. Then I am going. Zhou Jie nodded obediently, went out of the room, and picked up the phone. Jie, are you okay? Zhou Tianxiang said with some emotion. His daughter was so old, and the days he spent with her were less than 2 years. Dad? Zhou Jie was stunned. She didn't expect her father to call at this time, but she was a little surprised. Dad, why did you suddenly call me? Nothing. Dad just misses you. I want to hear your voice. Zhou Tianxiang didn't know how to speak. For Mother Zhou, he could say his current situation without any scruples, but for Zhou Jie, Zhou Tianxiang was afraid that he would say too much and make his daughter worry. Dad, is there anything wrong with you? Zhou Jie was also very sensitive. She was already 19 years old. She was not a little girl who didn't know anything. Especially after experiencing the Wang Jitao incident, Zhou Jie was more mature. Zhou Tianxiang didn't expect Zhou Jie to be so sensitive. She noticed something after just a few words. He sighed helplessly. Jie, do you know a person named Charles? Charles? Zhou Jie was stunned and fell into contemplation. This name was very strange. She had never heard of it, but since her father asked, there must be a very important thing, so Zhou Jie thought about it carefully. You don't know him. Zhou Tianxiang didn't expect his daughter to seem like she didn't know anything. I seem to remember. I have a bit of an impression. Once, when I was eating with Yang Ming, there was a guy who claimed to be the god of racing, Carsi. He talked to me. He seemed to have a good impression of me. Zhou Jie finally remembered who Charles was. What's wrong, Dad? Why did you suddenly ask about this person? Sure enough, he really knows you. Zhou Tianxiang finally confirmed it. Jie, your mother will rely on you to take care of her in the future. Dad, what are you talking about? Why are you so weird? Zhou Jie listened in confusion. What do you mean that my mother will rely on me to take care of her in the future? What about me? Nothing. Zhou Tianxiang was most reluctant to part with his baby daughter. He didn't love her much since she was a child. Zhou Tianxiang still wanted to do his duty as a father after a few years of retirement, but now, he was afraid that he couldn't. Dad, you must have something. Tell me, what's going on? Zhou Jie said anxiously. Nothing. It's really nothing. Okay, Dad just wants to hear your voice. Zhou Tianxiang was afraid that he couldn't help but cry, so he quickly said, okay, that's it, Dad, does Mom know? I will call Mom now. How could Zhou Jie just let it go? She wasn't stupid. She realized that something must have happened. Okay. Zhou Tianxiang finally nodded. He felt that it was necessary to let his daughter have the right to know. After all, his daughter would ask for the truth when she called her mother. It was better for him to talk to his daughter. And, you say it quickly. Seeing that her father had relented, Zhou Jie also breathed a sigh of relief and held the phone tightly. In fact, Dad is abroad, not doing business. Zhou Tianxiang said, instead, I am working as a butler for an assassin group. They are engaged in some assassination business. I am the butler of this family, responsible for some complicated affairs. If it goes well, in a few years, the family's master will see that I have worked hard for half of my life. Maybe he will allow me to retire safely. But now, I'm afraid it won't work. Why? Dad, did you do something wrong? Zhou Jie was shocked. Although she was very shocked that her father was actually working for an assassin group, Zhou Jie's current psychological endurance was much greater. She didn't ask too many questions. After all, she didn't think that her father would lie to her at this time. I have to talk about it bit by bit. Zhou Tianxiang said that Charles is actually the young master of the family that I work for, the Charles family. I don't know how he went to Songjiang to meet you, but according to the master, he fell in love with you at first sight, so the master came to me today to propose marriage. He wants you to marry him, and gave me two choices. He asked me to give him an answer before tonight, either you marry his son, Charles. Do you want it? Then I will pack up and leave the Charles family. Then just quit. Isn't it great that you come back and be with your mother? Zhou Jijia didn't understand why her father was worried. Isn't this a good thing? Moreover, that Charles is actually the young master of the family that my father works for. Isn't this too amazing? Zhou Jijia was a little confused, but it seems that Charles seems to be afraid of Yang Ming, right? Then, what is the identity of Yang Ming? Zhou Jijia had some doubts about Yang Ming's other identities, but she had never asked because she felt that it was unnecessary. She liked Yang Ming. No matter what Yang Ming did or what identity he had, he was still Yang Ming after all. He was the person she loved, so Zhou Jijia didn't ask much. But now things were getting more and more complicated. Zhou Jijia inevitably thought of Yang Ming unnaturally. How can it be so simple? Zhou Tianxiang sighed and said somewhat helplessly, I know too many secrets of the Charles family, and this time, I'm going against them. I'm not retiring peacefully. I can feel the anger in the master's eyes. I'm afraid that once I leave this time, the assassin will be dispatched to kill me. Zhou Jijia frowned. If it is really like what my father said, then it is a big deal. Is there no room for maneuver? Zhou Jijia didn't like that Charles at all. It was impossible for her to marry Charles, but she was also worried about her father's safety. For a time, Zhou Jijia was in a dilemma. Don't worry, Jijia. Dad won't force you to do anything. It's just that Dad may not be able to wait until the day of your wedding. I can't watch you put on the wedding dress. Speaking of this, Zhou Tianxiang's voice was a little choked. He was afraid that he couldn't control his emotions, so he quickly said, Okay, Jijia, Dad wishes you happiness. After that, Zhou Tianxiang hung up the phone. He was not afraid that Zhou Jijia would do something stupid for him because the headquarters of the Charles family was very secretive. If one wasn't in the industry, one couldn't know where they were. So, Zhou Jijia couldn't find him. Even if Zhou Jijia gave up love to save him, she couldn't find the place. That was why Zhou Tianxiang told Zhou Jijia the whole story. He wasn't afraid of the consequences. Dad. Zhou Jijia still wanted to say something, but she looked at the phone that already showed that the call was over. She shook her head helplessly. Although she could use technical means to invade the mobile phone carrier's network, then find the transfer server layer by layer. Finally, she determined the number of the call, but it would take a long time. Her father said that she had to give an answer tonight. In such a short time, even if Zhou Jijia was a master hacker, she couldn't achieve it. Zhou Jijia sighed and walked back to the room with a heavy heart. She wanted to call her mother, but she also knew that her father would definitely continue to talk to her mother at this time. Jijia, you're back. Just now, Yang Ming asked why you were gone for so long. He missed you. Chen Mengyan saw Zhou Jijia come back and couldn't help but tease. Oh, Zhou Jijia smiled very reluctantly. Jijia, what's wrong with you? Chen Mengyan saw that Zhou Jijia's smile was very unnatural and asked with some doubts. Nothing. Zhou Jijia didn't want everyone to chat because of her emotions during this happy time. Jijia, who called you just now? What happened? Yang Ming was the best at observing people's expressions. Although it was far away, he still saw Zhou Jijia's emotional loss from the camera. No, nothing. Zhou Jijia smiled awkwardly. I I just feel a little uncomfortable, Jia. You look a little absent-minded now. This lie is really not true. Yang Ming frowned. Now that everyone is a family, is there anything you can't tell me? Under Yang Ming's questioning, Zhou Jia could no longer control her emotions. Her tears fell involuntarily. Yang Ming, can you save my father, your father? What happened to your father? Yang Ming was stunned and asked immediately. Chapter 1143. My dad, he may be harmed by someone. Zhou Jia finally cried out. She didn't care about her image in front of others, but fortunately, these people were her family members. No one would laugh at her. Instead, they all showed a horrified expression. Harmed by someone. What happened? Yang Ming couldn't help but be stunned after listening to Zhou Jiajia's words. He didn't have much contact with Zhou Jiajia's father. He just met him once. He didn't even know what Zhou Jiajia's father did. Yang Ming, Zhou Jia paused as she spoke until here. However, it might be because she took into account Chen Mengyan and Lin Jiyun, but after thinking about it, the two of them were also the closest people to her. They would definitely live together in the future, so there was nothing to hide. Just as she wanted to continue, Chen Mengyan and Lin Jiyun spoke first. Jia, Sister Lin and I will go to another room to play. We will leave some private space for you and Yang Ming. Chen Mengyan patted Zhou Jiajia's hand and smiled. No need. Zhou Jia was a little embarrassed as she held the hands of Chen Mengyan and Lin Jiyun, who were leaving. I don't have to hide my matters from you. You can cheer me up by my side. My heart will feel better. And, that's good. Chen Mengyan was also afraid that Zhou Jia had some things that were inconvenient for her and Lin Jiyun to hear, so she made the move just now. Since Zhou Jia said that there was nothing, then she didn't have to leave. In fact, Chen Mengyan didn't want Zhou Jia to tell Yang Ming something and hide it from her and Lin Jiyun. In her opinion, the three people were now in such a close relationship. What else was there to hide? Jia, tell me. What is going on? But you can rest assured. Tell me if there is any trouble. I will help you solve it. Yang Ming said with certainty. Somehow, when she heard Yang Ming's affirmation, Zhou Jiajia's heart was suddenly at ease. Thinking of the past, no matter how big the matter was, it didn't trouble Yang Ming. She believed that this time must be the same. Yang Ming could help her solve it. Therefore, Zhou Jia told the ins and outs of the matter to Yang Ming. This is actually the case. My father is not doing business in Europe, but he is a butler for an assassin family. Assassin family? Butler? Yang Ming was stunned. He didn't expect that Zhou Jiajia's family could still be related to the assassin group. This world is really too small and wonderful. Are you scared? Zhou Jia saw Yang Ming's expression and couldn't help but ask. After all, most people would have a creepy feeling when they heard the relatively new and unfamiliar word assassin. It's just an assassin family. You continue. In fact, Yang Ming didn't say this to comfort Zhou Jia. An assassin family was just an assassin family in Yang Ming's eyes. Yang Ming didn't think that it would pose any threat to him. After all, Yang Ming's own profession was also an assassin. He was also the disciple of the world's #1 assassin, the king of assassins. Who would he be afraid of? Seeing that Yang Ming's expression was very relaxed, Zhou Jia also breathed a sigh of relief and continued, that Charles. Do you remember? It's the god of racing, Charles. Of course, I remember him. I just didn't expect you to remember him. Yang Ming was slightly surprised. Is this related to the god of racing, Charles? However, an assassin family. Charles. Yang Ming immediately thought of something. Jia, the assassin family you are talking about, don't you mean Charles's family? Ah. You know. This time, it was Zhou Jiajia's turn to be surprised. She didn't expect Yang Ming to know that Charles's family was an assassin family. This made Zhou Jiajia feel very strange. I know. You continue. Yang Ming nodded and motioned for Zhou Jiajia to continue. Yes, my father is the butler of the Charles family. Zhou Jiajia said, the person in charge of the Charles family, Charles's father, old Charles, proposed to my father today. He said that Charles likes me and wants me to marry him. Is this kid Charles asking for a beating? If I had known earlier, I would have beaten him up when I saw him last time. Yang Ming frowned after listening. This kid really doesn't give up. What did your father say? Of course, my father refused. Old Charles asked my father to consider it. Either promise him, or leave. Give him an answer before tonight, which is tonight in Europe. Zhou Jiajia explained. Then leave. The wealth on you and your mother's side is enough for you to spend. Moreover, don't you still have me? Yang Ming asked, baffled. At first, I said so, but my father said that he knew too many secrets of the Charles family. He was afraid that after this incident, the Charles family would not let him go. As soon as he left, the assassins would come one after another. Zhou Jiajia told Yang Ming about her father's worries. My father is afraid that they will kill him. This is possible. Yang Ming nodded. After all, assassins were still very mysterious. They couldn't simply let ordinary people know. So I am telling you now. Can you help my father? Speaking of this, Zhou Jiajia also felt that she was too blind to believe and worship Yang Ming. How can Yang Ming have a connection with the assassin group? Am I not looking for trouble for him? Of course. It's just an assassin family, hee hee. Yang Ming smiled and said, you are my wife. Isn't your business my business? Don't worry. Leave it to me. There is still some time before the evening. You find a way to tell your father to stabilize first. Wait for me to go. Ah. Zhou Jiajia looked at Yang Ming incredulously. She didn't believe what Yang Ming said before. He is going to solve it. Can he find the place where my father is? Besides, they are an assassin group. Is it so easy to enter? Moreover, Yang Ming actually said that it was just an assassin family. What does this mean? Yang Ming didn't seem to put them in his eyes at all. Hee hee, don't be confused. In fact, your man is much stronger than you think. He is no longer the Yang Ming in junior high school. Yang Ming smiled and said to Zhou Jiajia. Ah. Indeed, Zhou Jiajia also felt it. Although Yang Ming was still the same person, he seemed to have changed. Now, Yang Ming seemed to be in control of everything. Nothing could be difficult for him. Chen Mengyan also had this feeling. In senior high school, Yang Ming suddenly seemed to change into another person. Not only did his academic performance improve by leaps and bounds, but he also began to become bold and dishonest with her. Especially later, he quickly established a company and accumulated wealth. Chen Mengyan couldn't believe it. However, Lin Jiyun didn't have this feeling because when she knew Yang Ming was already very strong. Moreover, in her opinion, it seemed that every time she encountered difficulties, Yang Ming could help her solve it very well. Therefore, Lin Jiyun didn't feel that there was anything wrong with what Yang Ming said to Zhou Jiajia this time. Well, there isn't much time. When I solve the matter of Jiajia's father, I will come back and chat with you. We can try voice XX. Listening to this kid Zhongbin, it's very interesting. Haha. Yang Ming's expression changed from a serious to a lascivious one. The three girls originally listened to Yang Ming's previous righteous words, and they were somewhat in awe. However, when Yang Ming changed the topic, it became such a dirty thing. They suddenly snorted. Chen Mengyan said with a red face, "Who wants to have voice XX with you? But if you help Jia solve this matter, she should repay you. Let Jia satisfy your wish." Ah. Zhou Jia didn't expect Chen Mengyan to involve her as she talked. She suddenly blushed. She and Yang Ming hadn't really had that kind of relationship yet. If she had voice XX with Yang Ming, wouldn't it be even more embarrassing? Lin Jiyun couldn't help but laugh. Chen Mengyan wasn't so cold. With these days of contact, the three sisters got along more and more harmoniously. Well, the three of you rehearse first. It's best if the three of you do it together, hee. After Yang Ming finished speaking, he didn't wait for Chen Mengyan and the others to say anything and turned off the video. Only Chen Mengyan, Lin Jiyun, and Zhou Jia were left staring at the computer screen. Jia, you quickly use hacking to connect to Yang Ming's computer. I want to scold him. Chen Mengyan was so angry that she gritted her teeth. Forget it, Sister Yonyan. Yang Ming is going to do something serious. Lin Jiyun smiled and persuaded Chen Mengyan. I'm just saying it casually. Chen Mengyan was also a little embarrassed. Zhou Jiajia's mood was much better. She quickly took out the phone and dialed her mother's number. She couldn't contact her father, but her mother could definitely contact him. So, she had to relay what Yang Ming had just said to her mother. She wanted her to tell her father to calm down first. Anything else could be delayed until the evening. After the phone rang twice, it was connected. Obviously, Mother Zhou had been holding the phone. Jia, it's you. Mother Zhou's voice sounded a little choked. Mom, it's me. Zhou Jia said quickly, Mom, don't be sad. It's okay, you know about it. Mother Zhou sighed and asked. And I know. Dad just called me and told me the reason. Zhou Jia said. Then what do you think? After Mother Zhou finished speaking, she added, Mom won't force you. You can rest assured. Mom, I told Yang Ming about it. He said that he can help us solve it. Just leave everything to him. Zhou Jia comforted her mother. Ah. Leave it to Yang Ming. He can solve it. Mother Zhou was obviously stunned. Jia, this isn't a joke. Are you sure he can solve it? The other party is an assassin group. Mom, Yang Ming just said that he can solve it. Zhou Jia said with certainty, and he told me to tell Dad to delay the matter until the evening and wait for him to solve it. Are you sure that Yang Ming can solve this matter? Mother Zhou was really a little surprised. Although she admitted that Yang Ming could summon the wind and summon the rain locally, in Europe, especially in the face of an assassin group, could he still control others? Mom, I believe in Yang Ming. He is a man who can bring me miracles. Zhou Jia firmly expressed her opinion. She believed in Yang Ming and believed in everything about Yang Ming. Well, I will call your dad and ask him to cooperate with us. Mother Zhou was moved by Zhou Jiajia's determination. In any case, this was an opportunity. Maybe Yang Ming can really solve it. And be sure to tell Dad. Don't be impulsive. Let him wait until the evening. Yang Ming will definitely solve it. Zhou Jia instructed. Don't worry. I am the same as you. I don't want anything to happen to your dad. Mother Zhou said. Hanging up the phone, Zhou Jia breathed a sigh of relief. She didn't know why, but she suddenly wasn't worried at all. Because Yang Ming was not the kind of person who liked to brag and talk big. In general, Yang Ming would do what he said, especially in such a major event, so Zhou Jiejie was full of confidence in Yang Ming. Mother Zhou didn't dare to delay. She hung up Zhou Jiejie's phone call and called Zhou Tianxiang, who was far away in Europe. Zhou Tianxiang was sitting in his room in pain at the moment. He knew that this matter had to be confessed in the end, but he really couldn't bear to part with his daughter and his wife. After all, for most of his life, he didn't spend much time with his mother and daughter. Zhou Tianxiang felt that his life was really regretful. He lacked a lot of things, so he was unwilling to die like this. However, although he was unwilling, he had no better way at the moment. After all, his own personal strength was too small. He couldn't compete with the huge assassin group of the Charles family. The phone rang, and Zhou Tianxiang was shocked. He was relieved when he saw that it was his cell phone ringing. If it was an internal call, then it must be old Charles calling. Hello. Zhou Tianxiang picked up the phone and tried to make his emotions normal. Tianxiang, it's me. Mother Zhou said anxiously, you haven't given them an answer yet, right? Not yet. What's wrong? Zhou Tianxiang didn't understand why Mother Zhou asked this. Since you haven't, then you don't have to give them an answer as soon as possible. You can delay it for a while. You must try your best to delay it, said Mother Zhou. Why? Isn't the result the same whether I say it earlier or later? Zhou Tianxiang just thought that if he really couldn't do it, he would just tell old Charles directly. As for what would happen to him, he would just leave it to fate. It's not the same. Listen to me. Mother Zhou said quickly. Jiejie told her boyfriend, Yang Ming, about your matter. Yang Ming said that he can help you. He wants you to delay it as much as possible and wait for him to come over. Ah. Jiejie's boyfriend. Zhou Tianxiang frowned with some surprise. You mean, the boy you saw in the hospital last time? He can help me. Is there a mistake? I was very skeptical at first, but Jiejie's tone was very sure. She said that he can help you. Mother Zhou said, anyway, there's no harm in trying. Well, I will try my best to delay it. Zhou Tianxiang nodded. But, that boy. This is not the time for them to be heroes. Forget it. Let's not talk about it. In short, as you said, there's no harm in trying. It's good that you can think so. I'm also looking forward to a miracle. Mother Zhou nodded and said, maybe, Jiejie will really bring us a miracle. I hope so. Zhou Tianxiang didn't know why, but his tight heart suddenly relaxed. As long as he tried his best, it would be fine, right? Yang Ming turned off the computer and walked out of the room. Because he was chatting with Qin Mengyan, Zhou Jiejie, and Lin Zhiyun, Wang Xiaoyan did not join in the fun. Instead, she went to the yard to guide old Buffon and Mrs. Buffon in their martial arts practice. Seeing Yang Ming coming out, Wang Xiaoyan asked with a smile, finished chatting so soon. I thought you were going to spend the night with her. It's a little important. Yang Ming didn't have time to tease Wang Xiaoyan, but asked directly, do you know where the Charles family is? Charles family? Are you talking about the Charles we met a few days ago? Wang Xiaoyan was stunned. She didn't understand why Yang Ming suddenly asked this, but because of the presence of old Buffon and his wife, Wang Xiaoyan did not say the word assassin. Yes, it's them. I'm looking for them for something. Yang Ming said, do you know where their family's headquarters are? This. I really don't know. Wang Xiaoyan frowned and shook her head. Although she knew some things about the Charles family, she didn't know the details. If she were at home, she could ask her father. She might know where the Charles family's headquarters was, but now, Wang Xiaoyan didn't know how to inquire about these things. Yang Ming listened to Wang Xiaoyan's words and suddenly frowned. Originally, he thought that Wang Xiaoyan would know where the Charles family was, so he didn't ask Zhou Jiejie to inquire. But now it seemed that he had to call Zhou Jiejie again and ask her to ask again. Although it was a little troublesome, and his confidence in front of her would be greatly reduced, this was the only way. Master, are you talking about the Charles family that does the assassin business? Old Buffon opened his mouth at this time. Yang Ming wanted to go back to his room. After listening to Old Buffon's words, he quickly turned around and looked at Old Buffon with some surprise. You know where their headquarters are? When I was young, before I became the successor of the Buffon family, I visited them once, so I know where their family is, but master, how do you find them? Old Buffon nodded and said, Is there anything I can help with? Although they didn't like me very much when I was young, now that I am the patriarch of the Buffon family, my words are still very authoritative. Chapter 1144. No need. I know that it will be very difficult for you to handle this kind of thing. Although you have a lot of prestige in Europe, the assassin family is still very troublesome, said Yang Ming. He didn't want to embarrass Old Buffon. After all, the assassin family was different from the general family, and they wouldn't care too much about a family like Old Buffon. Therefore, such families generally minded their own business, just like the butterfly family that Yang Ming came into contact with. They were a transcendent existence. They would not bow to anyone, nor would they listen to anyone's orders. After Old Buffon listened to Yang Ming's words, he was a little embarrassed. Indeed, when he said that sentence just now, he was still a little unconfident and had the intention of stepping forward. It was only because it was Yang Ming's matter that Old Buffon braced himself and stepped forward. Now, when he heard Yang Ming say that he didn't need him, he was relieved. Master, this is the assassin family. Why are you looking for him? And, there is something. They are looking for trouble with one of my family members, so I have to find trouble with him first. Yang Ming said very easily, You just have to tell me the address. Ah. Old Buffon was stunned. Yang Ming actually wants to find trouble with the assassin family. And he said it so easily. However, it was not surprising that the association noticed Yang Ming's performance. Master is a martial arts master. What are those families? Master, I will send someone to make a map for you. As Old Buffon said this, he called the butler and then instructed him to go to the study to make a map. Yang Ming, what the hell is going on? Wang Xiaoyan looked at Yang Ming with some surprise. She didn't know why Yang Ming suddenly went to find trouble with the Charles family. It's a long story, but while Old Buffon is drawing the map, I will tell you briefly. Yang Ming didn't hide it. Zhou Jiejie's father is the butler of the Charles family. You didn't expect it, right? Ah. Zhou Jiejie's father is the butler of the Charles family. Wang Xiaoyan was stunned after listening to Yang Ming's words. She didn't expect these two people to be connected. Is Zhou Jiejie's father in trouble? Smart. Yang Ming nodded and said approvingly, This is the case. That Charles, I don't know why, but he actually took a fancy to Zhou Jiejie. Of Zhou Tianqiang. This is true. If he retires peacefully, maybe the Charles family won't do anything. But now that the two sides have fallen out, it is unknown whether old Charles will do something unfavorable to Zhou Tianqiang. Wang Xiaoyan nodded and said. That's why I have to make a trip there and settle this matter, Yang Ming said. Are you sure that old Charles will let Zhou Tianqiang go? Wang Xiaoyan wondered. Why does old Charles listen to Yang Ming? He is also an assassin. He naturally knows how terrible an assassin is. If he wants to touch Zhou Tianqiang, then he will be shrouded in the shadow of my assassination for the rest of his life. Unless he locks himself in the room and doesn't come out, but then, he has to consider whether the house will collapse. Yang Ming nodded and said gloomily. Wang Xiaoyan suddenly felt a chill after hearing it. Yang Ming is too ruthless. He is giving old Charles a taste of his own medicine. However, with Yang Ming's skill, he was not arrogant when he said this. At least, in Wang Xiaoyan's view, those assassins in her family were not stronger than Yang Ming. Therefore, if old Charles knew Yang Ming's strength, he probably would not touch Zhou Tianxiang. Moreover, Yang Ming was also a person in the assassin world. In this way, old Charles could rest assured that Zhou Tianxiang would not leak anything. After all, it was easier to negotiate with people on the same level. Do you want me to go with you? Asked Wang Xiaoyan. No need. If I go alone, even if I can't reach an agreement, I can guarantee that I can retreat safely. But if you go, I have to take care of you. After all, old Charles's family is different from the general place. I believe there must be a few masters there. Yang Ming waved his hand and said. Well, pay attention to your safety. I wish you success. Wang Xiaoyan was not such a pretentious person. She also knew that this matter was important. She would not easily add trouble to Yang Ming, so when she heard Yang Ming say so, she nodded and agreed. Don't worry, hee. Yang Ming smiled indifferently and touched Wang Xiaoyan's hair. Wang Xiaoyan's face reddened as she rebuked, there are others. Don't always touch me. Old Buffon quickly made the map of the Charles family. What made Yang Ming admire was that the map situation was actually drawn in the GPS navigator. This made Yang Ming admire the efficiency of old Buffon's elite men. Logically, this kind of place should be a large blank area that was not displayed and marked in the navigator's map, but old Buffon's men actually made the map and route of that area in such a short time. This was a very remarkable thing. After Yang Ming took over the navigator, he no longer delayed. He drove an off-road vehicle that old Buffon had prepared for him, and set off for the Charles family castle according to the route marked by the navigator. Although Yang Ming had not been here before, and he was not familiar with the route in Europe, there was the navigation mark, so it was not very difficult to walk. It was just that he occasionally violated the traffic rules in unfamiliar places, but he thought that the tickets for the cameras would be sent to the company under old Buffon, and old Buffon would not care about these things at all. Yang Ming was now in Europe, and the Charles family castle was only a 3-hour drive away from the manor of the old Buffon family where Yang Ming was located. This made Yang Ming feel that it was a bit of a coincidence. If the Charles family was too far away, Yang Ming could not drive. He should take old Buffon's private helicopter. But this was also inevitable. If the Charles family was not nearby, old Charles would not meet Charles at the tea house in this city. Therefore, Yang Ming was so sure that he would solve this matter before nightfall. Soon, they left the city, and the car drove on the winding mountain road. According to the navigation, it was not far from the Charles family castle. Who is it? Please get off immediately for inspection. When they were a certain distance away from the Charles family, Yang Ming was stopped by a few black-shirted men. Obviously, these must be the men of the Charles family. They were here to prevent strangers from going up. Yang Ming parked the car and got off with a smile on his face. He asked curiously, "What's wrong? Is there a toll booth here?" Yang Ming spoke standard English. He looked like a tourist who came here to play. This is not a tourist spot. This is private property. Please leave here immediately. A black-shirted man saw Yang Ming dressed like a tourist and spoke to him with a sigh of relief. But the scenery here is very beautiful. Can you make an exception and let me take a photo? Yang Ming said with some hesitation. That won't do. We have rules here that don't allow you to enter casually. The black-shirt man waved his hand. For tourists like Yang Ming, they had met before. On the contrary, they could meet a few within a month, so they were accustomed to it. In particular, Yang Ming's oriental face made them more relaxed. Because the more it was like this, the more Yang Ming looked like a tourist who came here to play. AI, that's really a pity. Yang Ming said with some helplessness. As he spoke, he shook his head and turned to return to the car. However, just as Yang Ming turned around, he suddenly turned back and quickly cut the neck of each of the 4 black-shirt men. The 4 men fell to the ground silently. These 4 people were also considered masters in the strict sense. Otherwise, old Charles wouldn't let them be responsible for guarding the first checkpoint. It was just that they didn't set up defenses against Yang Ming, and Yang Ming's speed was really too fast, so they fell into Yang Ming's trap in an instant. Although Yang Ming was not afraid to confront them head-on, it was more time-consuming to confront them head-on. Secondly, if the movement was too big, Yang Ming was afraid of attracting the attention of the next sentry. Therefore, Yang Ming chose this silent method to solve the problem. After the 4 men fell, Yang Ming tapped the sleeping acupoints on each of them to prevent them from waking up in a short time. After doing all this, Yang Ming dragged 3 of them to the side of the grass to cover them. Then, he took off another person's coat and put it on himself. He found a windbreaker from the trunk and put it on the black-shirt man. He threw the black-shirt man's head on the back seat of his car. Yang Ming got in the car and instantly used his special ability to transform into the black-shirt man's appearance. Yang Ming started the car and set off for the Charles family's castle. Sure enough, Yang Ming guessed correctly. There was a sentry not far away. Yang Ming stopped the car under their signal and then poked his head out of the window. Zeikisi, why are you here? The black-shirt man obviously knew the appearance of Yang Ming. He used Italian. It's me. I caught a sneaky guy. I'm going to report to the family master. Yang Ming also replied to him in Italian and then pointed to the unlucky guy in the back seat. Oh, so that's the case. Then you go quickly. The black-shirt man waved his hand and let Yang Ming drive over. For the next few sentry posts, Yang Ming used the same method to walk past them without any effort. He was not stopped at all. This made Yang Ming feel very refreshed. I really have to thank the little girl, Suya, for the development of this special ability. Otherwise, I wouldn't know. The car was parked not far from the castle and hidden behind a pile of boulders. Yang Ming got out of the car, but his appearance at the moment had transformed into Zhou Tianxiang's appearance. Yang Ming had seen Zhou Tianxiang in Songjiang, so he knew what he looked like. After the transformation was completed, Yang Ming took off the black-shirt man's clothes and restored his original clothes. He swaggered to the castle. When he came to the gate of the castle, the guard here was just about to stop him. When he took a closer look, the person who came was the family's butler, Zhou Tianxiang. Although it was a little strange, when did Butler Zhou leave the castle? But he still greeted respectfully and politely, Butler Zhou. Hello. Yang Ming nodded and didn't say much. He went directly into the castle. What happened to Zhou Tianxiang was only known by the castle's owner, Old Charles, and the person involved, Zhou Tianxiang, so other people in the castle didn't know about it. The real Zhou Tianxiang was in the room at the moment, so the appearance of Yang Ming, the fake Zhou Tianxiang, did not attract too much attention. It was because it was impossible to collide with the real Zhou Tianxiang. Yang Ming swaggered into the castle and called a servant casually. Zhou Tianxiang was the direct leader of these servants, so the servant who was called quickly came over in fear and trepidation. He asked carefully, Butler Zhou, what's the matter? Have you seen the master? Asked Yang Ming. Master? Isn't the master always in his room? The servant was stunned and quickly replied. Which room is he in? Yang Ming pretended not to care and asked. Generally, people like old Charles had many rooms, such as the study, bedroom, and so on. Isn't the master in the study during the day? He is in the innermost room upstairs. Although the servant found it strange, he didn't dare to ask more. He just answered truthfully. Zhou Tianxiang nodded and said, "Okay, then you go and do your work." "Yes, Butler Zhou." After the servant responded, he continued to do his own things. How could he dare to care about Butler Zhou's business? Yang Ming easily found out the location of old Charles. He couldn't help but shake his head. Isn't the management in this castle too lax? Isn't there any vigilance? As a matter of fact, the appearance of Yang Ming was simply a special case. Besides Yang Ming, who else could pretend to be Zhou Tianxiang? Yang Ming appeared in the castle with Zhou Tianxiang's appearance. Naturally, no one would doubt anything. Yang Ming went upstairs according to what the servant said. He came to the door of the room where old Charles was and knocked on the door. "Please come in." An old man's voice came from inside. What made Yang Ming a little surprised was that he actually spoke Chinese, the same Chinese as little Charles. However, the association knew that old Charles was also an Asian, so it was not surprising that he spoke Chinese. Yang Ming pushed open the door of the room and walked in. Of course, the moment he entered, he restored his original appearance. Old Charles had no defense at all. After all, it was impossible for ordinary people to enter his castle. He was staring at a set of data on the computer at the moment. The Black Butterfly assassin organization that his son, little Charles, had mentioned to him before. Old Charles paid attention to it after he came back. His family, the Charles family, was the third largest assassin organization in the world, so they also had a higher inquiry authority on the assassin platform. He directly found the recent mission of the Black Butterfly assassin organization. They only had one mission, but this single mission was enough to cause a sensation in the assassin world. Going to a war-torn country in North Africa to assassinate the leader of an armed force. They dared to accept this kind of mission, and they actually completed it. This made old Charles's jaw drop. This kind of mission, even he didn't dare to accept it casually. Not only would he not earn the commission, but he would also suffer a double loss. His own people would also die there. Looking at the initial stage of this mission, it was actually designated to complete the King of Assassins. This made old Charles somewhat amused. The King of Assassins had retired for several years. How could he come out and accept this mission? But how did this mission fall into the hands of the Black Butterfly assassin organization, and the other party was relieved to let a newly established assassin organization with no reputation take on this mission? This made old Charles very curious. Old Charles was also a person who knew the inside story of the King of Assassins. He knew how powerful the King of Assassins was, so he felt a bit weird when the bounty hunter first appointed the King of Assassins to complete the mission, and then commissioned the Black Butterfly assassin organization to complete it. The previous designation had already announced the difficulty of this mission. Only the King of Assassins could be competent, but the subsequent appointment was a bit interesting. This was not a game. If they failed, they could still find another assassin group. Once the assassination failed, the other party would be alerted, and the second assassination would not be so easy. Therefore, old Charles was really interested in the Black Butterfly assassin organization at this moment. Could it be that Wang Xiaoyan is really the descendant of that family? Only in this way could it be reasonable to explain why the Black Butterfly assassin organization could receive such a difficult mission. According to the sequencing theory, if the King of Assassins did not accept this mission for a certain period of time, then the bounty hunter might find the Butterfly family, which was one level lower than the King of Assassins, to accept this mission. Then, it was understandable that this mission fell into the hands of Wang Xiaoyan. However, would Old Man Wang let his only daughter do such a dangerous mission? No matter how old Charles thought about it, he felt that something was wrong. Moreover, old Charles knew that there was no suitable person under his command who could complete this mission. Although the butterfly family was stronger than his overall strength, it would be difficult for them to complete this mission. Why would they transfer this mission to his daughter? Could it be that this mission was actually completed by the butterfly family, but it was announced to the public that the Black Butterfly Assassin Organization completed it so that the Black Butterfly Assassin Organization's reputation could be increased? Then, what was the purpose of this? What was the use of the reputation of the Black Butterfly Assassin Organization? Old Charles was more and more confused, but he had to continue to think about it. After all, this kind of big change in the assassin world would have an impact on the Charles family. Chapter 1145. If it was an ordinary small assassin group, old Charles might not pay so much attention to it. After all, in this world, there were too many small assassin groups. If old Charles paid attention to each of them, he would be exhausted. However, he couldn't take the Black Butterfly Assassin group lightly. In the beginning, he also looked at the information of the Black Butterfly Assassin group with a playful attitude. After all, after listening to his son, little Charles, old Charles felt that this Black Butterfly Assassin group seemed to be established by the daughter of the butterfly family. Naturally, he paid more attention to it. He didn't expect to be surprised after reading it. The Black Butterfly Assassin group actually completed such an impossible mission. This made old Charles very surprised. After all, with the strength of his family, they might not be able to complete such a mission. Therefore, when Yang Ming knocked on the door, old Charles was very absent-minded and casually said, "Please come in." He didn't even raise his head. It was enough to see how engrossed he was at the moment. Because with the current growth rate and ranking of the Black Butterfly Assassin group, it wouldn't take long for them to rush to the top. After all, the reputation of the assassin group was not determined by the number of missions performed, but the difficulty of the missions performed. For example, the mission that the Black Butterfly Assassin group accepted this time was defined as an A+++ level, which was one of the most difficult missions. After this kind of mission was completed, the overall score evaluation obtained by the corresponding assassin group would also increase a lot. Unlike the general B-level and C-level missions, which only added a few points or even a few tenths of a point upon completion, this A-level mission would add dozens of points upon completion. An A+ level mission would add more points, not to mention the extremely difficult level mission with 3+ signs behind the A level. Completing this kind of mission would randomly add thousands or even tens of thousands of points. Therefore, the Black Butterfly Assassin group jumped from the initial unknown to the top 50 of the world's assassin groups. This was impossible in the past because many big assassin groups couldn't accept this kind of mission, let alone those small assassin groups. However, this time, the Black Butterfly Assassin group broke this myth. From the initial unknown, they suddenly climbed to the top 50. If they continued to develop at this speed, the Black Butterfly Assassin group would only accept some extremely difficult missions. Then, it wouldn't take long for the Black Butterfly Assassin group to rise to the top 10 or even the top 5 at an unimaginable speed. This was possible because in the past, this kind of high-level assassination was generally not accepted by the assassin group. Although the reward was high, and the reputation of the assassin group was also greatly improved, this kind of mission was too dangerous. Not only would the mission not be completed, but the assassin would also die there. That was really a double loss. Therefore, the release of this kind of mission was likely to be unsettled in the end. When the King of Assassins was around, it often took on some such missions. Other assassin organizations sighed at their inferiority. No one would compete with the King of Assassins for these missions. However, with the King of Assassins' retirement, no one was willing to accept these difficult missions. No one wanted to lift a rock only to drop it on their own feet. But with the emergence of the Black Butterfly Assassin Group, would this situation change? But he had to face this reality. Old Charles sighed. I am really old, and the Charles family has no successor. After having a serious talk with little Charles that day, old Charles also gave up the idea of letting him inherit the family business. After all, a forced melon is not sweet. Little Charles's interest was not in the assassin group at all. Wasn't it difficult for him to manage the assassin's business? Old Charles shook his head helplessly. It was imperative to find a partner as soon as possible, a partner who could carry forward the Charles family. Otherwise, even if the Charles family was finished, the group of assassins under him would have no food to eat. Old Charles knew his own business. He was still clear about the weight of these people. They could kill people, but they couldn't carry the burden. They lacked leadership and pioneering spirit. This was what old Charles was most worried about. Old Charles, hello. Yang Ming pushed the door and walked in. He closed the door of the study and quickly locked it. Then, he sat in the chair opposite old Charles. Yang Ming's voice was flat, but it was like thunder in old Charles's ears. Because old Charles had never heard Yang Ming's voice, and it was even spoken in Chinese. In this house, except for the butler, Zhou Tianxiang, his son, and his wife who used this language, the others used Italian and English, so old Charles was so surprised. He hurriedly looked up, but he saw a strange Oriental man standing in front of him. Old Charles was even more shocked. You, who are you? How did you come in? Let me introduce myself. My name is Yang Ming. Yang Ming said calmly, as for how I came in, you don't need to know. What are you doing here? After all, old Charles was an old man. After a short shock, his face returned to calmness. Do you know what I do? You dare to break in. Aren't you afraid of death? This is the funniest joke I have ever heard. If you just want to threaten me, then I will give you this opportunity. You can continue to threaten. When you are done with your threats, let's talk about business. Yang Ming shrugged indifferently and smiled. Humph. Old Charles also understood that since Yang Ming could come in, he was not an ordinary person. Saying these meaningless threats would not have any effect at all. Instead, it would make him laugh. So old Charles snorted and changed the topic. Let's talk about your purpose of coming. My purpose is very simple. Zhou Jiejia is my girlfriend. Zhou Tianxiang is my girlfriend's father, which is my father-in-law. I don't want anything to happen to either of them. Yang Ming's tone was very plain, but there was an unquestionable certainty in his words. After listening to Yang Ming's words, old Charles was stunned at first, then he suddenly laughed. Ha, interesting. Are you threatening me? You can laugh now, but if anything happens to either of them, then I will make you regret being born in this world. Yang Ming said faintly. This is also the funniest joke I have ever heard. Young man, don't overestimate yourself. Did Zhou Tianxiang bring you in? Old Charles sneered. This Zhou Tianxiang is really getting more and more unruly. You can think whatever you want, but you can call your sentry outside and see if they answer your call. Yang Ming smiled indifferently. After listening to Yang Ming's words, old Charles's face suddenly changed. Could it be that Yang Ming broke in? Yang Ming threw a waist tag in front of old Charles. This was found in the pocket of the black-shirt man. It should be some kind of token of the Charles family. Yang Ming put it in his pocket. He didn't expect it to come in handy at this time. Old Charles's face had become very ugly. This was the token of the Charles family on the first guard. Old Charles naturally recognized it. I forgot to tell you. My current identity is the person in charge of the Black Butterfly Assassin Group. Yang Ming looked at old Charles's face that changed color and said slowly. Oh. I was wondering who you are. It turns out that you are the person in charge of the Black Butterfly Assassin Group. No wonder you dare to talk to me in this tone. Old Charles was secretly surprised. Why is Zhou Tianqiang's son-in-law such a figure? He was wondering whether to go against him. He didn't know about Yang Ming's background, but he could guess about Wang Xiaoyan's background. If he didn't give Yang Ming face, would Wang Xiaoyan have any reaction? However, old Charles thought about it again. Even if Wang Xiaoyan is the heir of the butterfly family, so what? I'm not bad. I'm the family master of the Charles family. Although my assassin group is inferior to the butterfly family, it is not so easy to bully. So, he decided in his heart and no longer cared about anything. You also know about the Black Butterfly Assassin Group. Yang Ming narrowed his eyes. He thought that old Charles didn't know about this group. He didn't expect the Black Butterfly Assassin Group to be so famous now. You just completed an A+++ mission. Old Charles snorted. However, you are just an assassin group that has just been established. Do you think you are so great? You dare to behave atrociously in front of me. Our Charles family is ranked third on the assassin list. You are really showing off in front of Master Guan. You are overestimating yourself. It's useless to say this. In short, you mean that you are not going to let Zhou Tianqiang go. Yang Ming waved his hand and interrupted old Charles. His tone became a little cold. So what if I am? Old Charles snorted. He was not afraid of this kid in front of him. No wonder when he first said that his name was Yang Ming, he felt that this name was familiar, but he couldn't remember it for a while. Now, he remembered that this name appeared on the business card that little Charles showed him. However, at that time, he only paid attention to Wang Xiaoyan and ignored this name. Now that he heard Yang Ming say this, he remembered the previous matter. Yang Ming smiled slightly. Since I can come in once, then I can come in a second time and a third time. I don't know what your life will be like in the future, but you will definitely be in the shadow of fear. Old Charles took a deep breath, and his eyebrows twitched slightly. He didn't expect Yang Ming to use this as a threat. Indeed, being able to come in here and sit in front of him was enough to prove that this young man in front of him was not simple. Moreover, it could be proved from the fact that he could complete the difficult mission. However, old Charles was a senior. He was threatened by a rising star in the assassin world. His heart was very uncomfortable. There was a breath in his throat that was about to come out. Young man, don't be too arrogant. Old Charles's face twitched twice. You can come in the first time, but it doesn't mean that you can come in the second time. Even if you can come in, do you think that you can still leave after saying this to me today? Old Charles was completely furious. He couldn't care less about falling out with Yang Ming. He couldn't help but threaten. What you said makes me feel very skeptical. Why do you seem like you are strong on the outside but weak on the inside? Yang Ming smiled. First, you may not be able to keep me. It's not that I look down on you, but the people in your castle are not in my eyes. Second, even if you keep me, someone will avenge me. At that time, you won't be the only one living in fear. The entire Charles family may suffer unprecedented crazy revenge. Avenge you? Your partner? You're overestimating her strength. Old Charles was slightly stunned after listening to Yang Ming's words. Could it be that there is another relationship between this kid and Wang Xiaoyan? At that time, will the butterfly family be involved? However, after thinking about it, the butterfly family should not be involved. Wang Xiaoyan had an engagement. This was something that many top people in the assassin world knew. They all knew the agreements and grievances between the butterfly family and the king of assassins. Therefore, Wang Xiaoyan and the man in front of him only had an affair at most. It was impossible for the butterfly family to stand up and support Wang Xiaoyan openly. Thinking of this, old Charles's heart also calmed down. He was also clear that Wang Xiaoyan ran away from home. Just like his son, Charles, who didn't have a difficult time in their own family. Of course, it's not her. She is not as good as me. Yang Ming was very honest and confessed. Then who can avenge you? Old Charles was a little curious. Does this Yang Ming have other honor? My master. Yang Ming said, he has been looking for a long time to find such a suitable apprentice like me. If I am harmed by you, he will definitely go crazy. Once he goes crazy, the consequences will be quite serious. This was also a trump card that Yang Ming had. After all, although Yang Ming was skilled and proficient in acupuncture points and concealed weapons, he couldn't fight against many people and modern firearms. If old Charles really wanted to keep him, it was not impossible. Therefore, Yang Ming had to leave a way out. He couldn't let himself be too passive. With the growth of Yang Ming also knew that he couldn't do things completely based on impulse. He had to think about the people around him and the girls who loved him. During the adventure in Africa, Wang Xiaoyan's move made Yang Ming deeply aware of this. He would never take risks without preparation in the future. Your master. Who is your master? Old Charles was stunned. He didn't expect Yang Ming to answer like this. Fang Tian. Yang Ming said these two words calmly. The face of old Charles on the opposite side changed instantly as if he had heard a very horrible word. He was so shocked that his mouth was wide open. He sat there in a daze and couldn't speak. Fortunately, Yang Ming secretly breathed a sigh of relief. It seems that old Charles still knows the name of old man Fang. Otherwise, it would take a lot of effort to explain. This saves me the trouble. You are the apprentice of the king of assassins. Old Charles looked at Yang Ming in surprise. He accepted an apprentice. Some of the previous doubts were instantly confirmed in old Charles's mind. No wonder this kid is with Wang Xiaoyan. It turns out that he is the apprentice of the king of assassins, the one who has a marriage contract with the little princess of the butterfly family. Then, Wang Xiaoyan's identity was confirmed at this moment. She was the heir of the butterfly family. Old Charles also understood why the task assigned to the king of assassins was transferred to an unknown small assassin group. Indeed, the name of the small assassin group was very unfamiliar, but the person in charge of this small assassin group was controlled by the apprentice of the king of assassins, Fang Tian. He was the new king of assassins. How could this not shock old Charles? The king of assassins, who had been depressed for nearly 10 years, finally confirmed the legend. After he retired, he would find a successor. After a certain period of time, the new king of assassins would reappear. Old Charles and Fang Tian were people of the same period, so he did not come into contact with the previous king of assassins. He did not know whether the legend was true or not. After Fang Tian retired, old Charles gradually forgot this person, but he did not expect that after a few years, his apprentice would sit in front of him. What Yang Ming said was really not wrong. If he touched Yang Ming, then Fang Tian, the old madman, could do anything. If he hurt his apprentice, who was not easy to train, Fang Tian would not even care about the friendship in the past. It was not impossible for him to directly destroy the Charles family. For Fang Tian, this was not difficult. I have been with old man Fang for more than half a year. I am currently in the experience stage. Yang Ming saw that the effect of deterrence had been achieved. It was time to talk to old Charles calmly. Previously, young Ming's identity would definitely not be valued by old Charles. Old Charles was still hostile to him, so young Ming could not talk to old Charles calmly. But now, his identity had been revealed. Old Charles would not act rashly, and the two people were qualified to negotiate face to face, so young Ming said the previous sentence. "Half a year, and you are so powerful. The King of Assassins is indeed a legend in the assassin world." Old Charles nodded and said with deep emotion. "Well, Uncle Charles, I think we can talk calmly now." Young Ming changed his smiling expression, but this time it was not the kind of sneer and ridicule, but a sincere smile. Old Charles nodded. "Yes, you are indeed qualified to talk to me. After Fong Tian retired, our identities are on equal footing. We are the new King of Assassins, Mr. Chapter 1146. Old Charles quickly accepted the current reality. It couldn't be helped. In a sense, young Ming's identity was condescending because he was the world's #1 king of assassins. Therefore, old Charles's mentality became calm in an instant. Yes, he couldn't continue to act dumb in front of young Ming because young Ming had the capital to be on equal footing with him. Now it seemed that young Ming could break into his room silently, and he had not received any report from his underlings. This was not a coincidence. It was just that old Charles was secretly shocked. Isn't young Ming's ability a bit too great? It seems that this kind of quiet infiltration, and no one has discovered it so far. Fong Tian doesn't seem to be able to do it, right? Could it be that the student has surpassed the master? Or has Fong Tian improved again? Or is it that he has never really shown his full strength in front of us? I don't dare to be the new king of assassins. I'm just an intern. Yang Ming smiled and said faintly. Anyway, since the king of assassins has spoken, I naturally have to give this face. Zhou Tianxiang will be handed over to you. Old Charles shrugged. In fact, he knows too many things, but I can't bear to kill this person who has been with me for so many years. I plan to inject him with some drugs to make him lose all his memories. Amnesia. Yang Ming frowned. Isn't that the same as a newborn baby? But now it's definitely not necessary because your identity is also there. Since he is your father-in-law, then I can rest assured that he won't do anything bad to me. Old Charles said with a smile. Thank you very much, Uncle Charles. Yang Ming hoped to solve it in this peaceful way. After all, he still wanted to cooperate with the Charles family. He didn't want to have a conflict directly. Hee, you can call me Uncle Charles. That is giving me a lot of face. I didn't expect that I, Old Charles, would become the elder of the King of Assassins one day. Old Charles smiled happily. It could be seen that his smile was sincere. Then, Uncle Zhou's matter is settled. As for Charles, I will talk to him. If he has any opinions, let him come to me directly. Yang Ming smiled. That is natural. Old Charles hesitated and said, however, I hope you cannot implicate Charles. It is his freedom to like Zhou Jijia. Whether Miss Zhou agrees or not is another matter. Don't worry, Uncle Charles. How should I say it? My relationship with Charles is pretty good. I'm not as irritable as you think. The previous threat was really out of helplessness. If I didn't say that, you wouldn't be able to calm down and talk to me. Yang Ming smiled and said apologetically. Hee, since you said so, then I am relieved. Mr. Yang Ming, after you see Charles, help me persuade him. Even if he doesn't like the family business, he should spend more time with me. After all, I am old now. I want to spend more time with him. Said Charles. Okay, don't worry, Uncle Charles. I will talk to him. Yang Ming nodded and said to Old Charles. And then you can take Zhou Tianxiang away. I will call him and ask him to leave with you, asked old Charles. This is not urgent. I came here this time because there is one more thing. Yang Ming hesitated and spoke. After all, Yang Ming originally wanted to find an opportunity to see old Charles. This time, there was this opportunity, so it was best to finish the matter together. Oh. What else? Old Charles asked with some doubts. In his opinion, Yang Ming came to him only because of Zhou Tianxiang. Now that the matter was resolved, why did Yang Ming look for him? This is the case, Uncle Charles. I think, can we cooperate? Yang Ming said with a smile. Cooperation. After old Charles heard Yang Ming's words, his heart suddenly moved. Didn't I always want to find a person to cooperate with before? Isn't Yang Ming in front of me the best person to cooperate with? What old Charles couldn't let go of was the assassin career that he had worked hard to build. He didn't want this career to wither because of his old age and little Charles's dislike. Now, there was Yang Ming, the heir of the king of assassins, and the heir of the butterfly family to cooperate with him. At the very least, his own assassin career would not die, and those assassins would continue to have a meal. Thinking of this, old Charles couldn't help but be excited. Yes, he didn't expect Yang Ming to be a person who woke up from his dream. With such a strong partner, old Charles could rest assured in his old age. Yes, let's cooperate. Yang Ming nodded affirmatively. How do we cooperate? Old Charles asked with some excitement. I want to borrow some people from Uncle Charles as instructors to train my people. Yang Ming said his thoughts. Train. Old Charles was stunned. Isn't it more effective for you to train personally? Why do you need my people to train? It was no wonder that old Charles was puzzled. Yang Ming was the direct disciple of the king of assassins. Wouldn't it be more effective for him to train? Yang Ming suddenly smiled bitterly after listening. Uncle Charles, I can't train personally because of my own reasons. First, my master also said that my physical characteristics are strange. It seems that it is very easy to imitate something. That is, I can learn a lot of old man Fong's skills in half a year. However, these things are obviously not suitable for ordinary people. If they practice it, it is counterproductive and easy for them to go crazy. Moreover, some kung fu can only be passed down from generation to generation. It can only be passed on to the inner disciples. It can't be passed on to outsiders, so I can't pass on some special things to the people in the organization. Also, I really don't have so much time. Yan Yan and I are both college students. We still have to go to school. Yang Ming said it frankly, so after old Charles heard it, he nodded. Indeed, when you said so, I understand. You are talking about the general training method. Yes, that's why I want to find Uncle Charles to cooperate. Yang Ming nodded and said. However, old Charles was even more surprised. Not to mention that Wang Xiaoyan was the heir of the butterfly family. It was easy to find some training instructors from the butterfly family. Yang Ming, as the heir of the king of assassins, also had a deep relationship with the butterfly family. Why didn't he go to the butterfly family to ask for people? Could it be that he and Wang Xiaoyan still have some hidden relationship? Yes, Wang Xiaoyan ran away from home. It was normal for her not to rely on her own family. Maybe it was because of this. However, it was precisely because of this that old Charles keenly felt that this was a good opportunity for him. A good opportunity to establish a deep cooperative relationship with Yang Ming. Since it is a cooperation, then the two sides should be mutually beneficial, right? Asked the old fox, old Charles. Yes. Yang Ming nodded. So, what benefits can I get from this cooperation? Old Charles set a trap step by step. I can pay for the training. Yang Ming said. In contrast, although your people are instructors, they can also learn some training methods that they don't know. These are some of my original training methods. Is that so? Old Charles listened to Yang Ming's words and was suddenly a little tempted. He didn't care about the training fees. Those in this line of work were not short of money. However, he was very interested in Yang Ming's original training methods. However, old Charles knew that he couldn't compromise like this. He wanted a deeper cooperation. Why? Uncle Charles is not satisfied. Yang Ming didn't expect that old Charles was still hesitating with such generous conditions. No, this kind of cooperation is not enough. Old Charles shook his head. I think we can go further and have a deeper cooperation. What do you mean? Asked Yang Ming in a daze. It's very simple. I think we should cooperate again. This kind of cooperation is meaningless. I am not interested, said old Charles. Then, what kind of cooperation are you interested in, Uncle Charles? Yang Ming was a bit baffled. It turned out that old Charles didn't want to cooperate, but he had some doubts about his cooperation plan. Moreover, he still wanted a deeper cooperation. I believe you are also clear about my current situation. Old Charles sighed. My son, little Charles, doesn't like the assassin business in the family at all. He wants to do racing. I persuaded him, but he didn't listen. In the end, he persuaded me. Speaking of this, old Charles smiled with some self-deprecation. Everyone's ideals and pursuits are different. I admire Charles very much. He can have a conflict with you for his own ideals and pursuits. Yang Ming shook his head and said, moreover, Charles has also made some achievements. He is now very famous in the racing industry. This is true. If he didn't make any achievements, I couldn't continue to let him play anymore. Old Charles nodded and said, however, I am getting older and older. It is impossible for me to have another son, but what about my family business? Who will inherit it? This. Yang Ming couldn't say anything. After all, this was the Charles family's family business. What could Yang Ming say? Yang Ming originally wanted to say, isn't this simple? Can't you just find a relative and hand it over to him? However, this sentence was really a bit annoying, so Yang Ming directly kept silent. I may be a bit hasty when I say this, but this is indeed my top priority. Old Charles saw that Yang Ming didn't speak, so he sighed and said, the current situation is that the assassin group under the Charles family has no leader, and there is no future development. If this continues, it will inevitably die out. Then what do you mean? Yang Ming faintly guessed old Charles's intentions, and he couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. I don't know if Mr. Yang is interested in managing the assassin group, said old Charles. Managing the assassin group? You mean, let me manage the assassin group of the Charles family for you? Asked Yang Ming. Yes. Old Charles nodded. I think so. I don't know what you think. Uncle Charles, are you kidding? Yang Ming was stunned. He was just guessing before. Now that it was confirmed, it was very inexplicable. Do I look like I'm kidding? Old Charles shrugged and smiled. In fact, before you came, I was thinking about this issue, but I didn't expect you to take the initiative to propose to cooperate with us. In this case, I am naturally happy to take advantage of the situation. Yang Ming understood that old Charles wasn't just joking, but he was talking to him about this matter formally. With a frown, Yang Ming said, Uncle Charles, how do you want us to cooperate? You won't let me work for you for free just because I asked you to help me train a few people, right? Managing an assassin group is much more difficult than training a few people. That's true. I naturally understand this. Old Charles smiled. Cooperation is mutually beneficial. If I ask for this, you can't agree. Hee hee. Yang Ming smiled. Indeed, if old Charles really asked this, then he definitely couldn't agree. I can use my assassin group to invest. You just have to give me a part of the equity. I don't want anything else. I just want a guaranteed annual income that is not less than the average number of shares in these years, said old Charles. That's it. You won't participate in anything in the future. Yang Ming was a little surprised when he heard old Charles's words. What was the difference between this and giving his assassin group to him? He just went behind the scenes to get equity dividends. I am also tired. I have worked hard for a lifetime. It's time to let go, said old Charles. Uncle Charles, since you have decided, then I think there is no problem on my side. It's just that the details need to be finalized. I have to communicate with Yan Yan in this regard. Yang Ming nodded and initially agreed to old Charles's suggestion. Okay, of course, you have to communicate. I understand this. Old Charles nodded and said, so, after you communicate, contact me and let me know what to do, okay? Of course, there is no problem. Yang Ming nodded. I have already said that I have no problem on my side. I am just discussing the details with Yan Yan. That's good. Old Charles smiled and said, right, when will you bring your partner to visit me? As soon as possible. I still have some things to do. Yang Ming said, right, there is something I need your help with. What is it? Just say it, said old Charles. This is the case. Can you see if you can keep my identity a secret? I didn't tell Yan Yan about this. Yang Ming said, moreover, old man Fong doesn't allow me to say it casually. Oh? Your partner doesn't know. Old Charles was stunned. Then how did the two of them get together? He couldn't help but wonder, do you know what Wang Xiaoyan's family does? I haven't inquired about this. She doesn't want to say it, and I don't want to ask more. Yang Ming shook his head and said. Okay, I will keep it a secret for you. Old Charles almost laughed out loud. And this was really the funniest joke he had ever heard. Wang Xiaoyan ran away from home to escape the marriage. As a result, she met the apprentice of the King of Assassins by chance. The two of them even walked together, and then they didn't know each other's identity. This was simply amazing. However, since Yang Ming and Wang Xiaoyan didn't know, old Charles didn't want to expose it. Let them continue to be entangled. When the truth is revealed, it's interesting to think about it. And, thank you, Uncle Charles. Right, Uncle Charles, what is your expression? Yang Ming looked at old Charles's smile, baffled. Why is his smile so weird? Nothing. Today, I finally solved a big problem of mine. I am very happy in my heart, said old Charles. Yang Ming shook his head and didn't ask any more. Okay, then can I take Uncle Zhou away? Yes. I will call him now. Old Charles nodded and said. This time, he was completely willing because Yang Ming agreed to his cooperation plan, which made him very happy. As for Zhou Tianxiang's matter, it was a trivial matter. Right, Uncle Charles, in front of Uncle Zhou, please keep it a secret for me. Can you not tell my true identity? Yang Ming asked. Of course, this is your business. Old Charles smiled, picked up the phone, and dialed the internal line of Zhou Tianxiang's room. At this moment, Zhou Tianxiang was in a painful dilemma. Although Mother Zhou sent a message to let him delay, he didn't think that his daughter's boyfriend could help him. After all, one was in China, and the other was in Europe. They were thousands of miles apart. How could he manage things here? Even if he had power in Europe, he might not be able to interfere with the Charles family's affairs. Therefore, Zhou Tianxiang's mood at the moment was still very complicated. The internal phone on the table suddenly rang, making Zhou Tianxiang shocked. Hello. Zhou Tianxiang picked up the phone. Tianxiang, I'm old Charles. Are you free now? Can you come to my room? Old Charles's tone was very polite. Oh. Okay, I will come over. Although Zhou Tianxiang found it strange that old Charles's tone became so polite, he didn't think much about it. After all, his mind was now completely focused on Zhou Jie and his own destiny. How could he have the time to think about whether old Charles's tone had changed? That's good. I will wait for you in the study. Old Charles nodded and said. After that, he hung up the phone and said to Yang Ming, he will come right away. We are now partners. How can I do something bad to him? Hee hee. Chapter 1147. At this point, Yang Ming no longer doubted that old Charles would do anything that was not beneficial to Zhou Tianxiang. After all, Yang Ming's identity was there. Old Charles must consider before doing anything. Could Yang Ming agree and let him go? More importantly, now that old Charles decided to cooperate with Yang Ming, it was impossible to do anything that was not conducive to the development of their relationship. Of course, I believe in your sincerity. Yang Ming listened to old Charles's words and said with a smile, after all, if the two of us cooperate, we still have a long time in the future. How can Uncle Charles do anything to destroy the friendship between us? This is true, hee hee. Old Charles nodded and said with a smile. As the two were talking, there was a knock on the door outside the room. At this moment, Zhou Tianxiang's mood was complicated. He was like a person waiting for the judgment of fate, helpless and confused. He didn't understand why old Charles suddenly called him over at this time. It was not evening yet. There was still some time before evening, so Zhou Tianxiang didn't know why old Charles called him in advance. But in any case, since he was called, then there must be something. So what if it was delayed until evening? Zhou Tianxiang didn't think there would be anything special if it was delayed until evening. After all, Yang Ming's promise was too vague. Zhou Tianxiang really didn't believe that his daughter's boyfriend could come and save him. Zhou Tianxiang sighed and knocked on the door of old Charles's study. He heard the deep voice of old Charles inside, "Please come in." Zhou Tianxiang pushed open the door of the study and walked in. He said habitually, "Master, what's the matter?" "I'm not a master." "I can't afford to be called a master," said old Charles quickly. After living for so long, how could old Charles not understand the principle of a wise man submits to circumstances? Now that his relationship with Yang Ming was on equal footing, and Zhou Tianxiang was Yang Ming's father-in-law, old Charles didn't dare to be arrogant this time. Moreover, he now had a request from Yang Ming. He wanted to seek cooperation from Yang Ming, so his attitude toward Zhou Tianxiang naturally took a 180-degree turn. Oh. Zhou Tianxiang was stunned when he heard old Charles's words. He didn't think so much. He thought that old Charles was angry and had already planned to break with him, so he said this kind of sarcastic words. He was shocked and said, "Master, don't say that." Tianxiang, why are you still standing? Please sit down quickly." In order to show his sincerity in front of Yang Ming, old Charles stood up and gestured to Zhou Tianxiang. Zhou Tianxiang was really dumbfounded this time. He didn't understand what happened to old Charles, who had a red face and a thick neck before. When Yang Ming saw that Zhou Tianxiang finally noticed him, he stood up and said respectfully, "Uncle Zhou, please sit down." Zhou Tianxiang felt that he was really in a dream. My daughter's boyfriend really came here. How did he get here so quickly? And it seems that there is no conflict between him and old Charles, but they seem to be quite harmonious. Of course, Zhou Tianxiang naturally couldn't guess the situation when Yang Ming and old Charles were at each other's throats. Tianxiang, please forgive my rudeness before. Old Charles said politely, you didn't remember it in your heart, right? Of course not. Zhou Tianxiang was a little overwhelmed. Old Charles's attitude now was very good. He was like a different person from before. This made Zhou Tianxiang somewhat at a loss for a while. I think you know this person. I don't need to introduce him again. Old Charles pointed at Yang Ming and said, this matter is a bit inappropriate. I didn't know that you are Mr. Yang's father-in-law. If I knew, I wouldn't have said those words before. You are. Zhou Tianxiang saw that old Charles and Yang Ming seemed to be familiar with each other, and he was a little surprised. In his opinion, these two people were absolutely impossible to have any intersection, but now they were sitting together. This made Zhou Tianxiang feel that this world was simply too strange. It was so strange that he was somewhat at a loss for what to do. Mr. Yang is my close partner. The two of us will carry out many in-depth cooperation in the future. We have just reached a consensus. Isn't that right, Mr. Yang? Old Charles asked with a smile. Yang Ming was somewhat helpless. Old Charles was still a little worried about him. He was afraid that Yang Ming would regret when he went back. Now he was forcing Yang Ming to make a statement. Yang Ming said with a smile, that is natural. Uncle Zhou, since Mr. Charles has recognized his mistake, then don't take it to heart, okay? If you don't forgive him, then I can only terminate my cooperation with him. After Yang Ming finished speaking, his heart felt great. He thought, who asked you to trip me up? I will let you have a taste of this. Sure enough, when Yang Ming's voice just fell, old Charles's face changed greatly. He couldn't help but regret that he was a little meddlesome. Obviously, Yang Ming had already promised him. What else was there to be worried about? After he finished speaking, he forced himself into a dead end, which made him shoot himself in the foot. In fact, old Charles was not afraid of not being able to give away such a big business. Who wouldn't want free money? But it was not so easy to entrust it to a reliable person. Since old Charles found a suitable candidate like Yang Ming, he was naturally unwilling to give up. Yang Ming was the direct disciple of the King of Assassins, so he was destined to be an assassin in this life. He would always be committed to the assassin career. However, Yang Ming was the King of Assassins, and Wang Xiaoyan was the only heir of the Butterfly family. That was to say, the Butterfly family's business would eventually fall into the hands of Yang Ming. The Butterfly family's business was bigger than his Charles family's business, so Yang Ming might not be interested in his family's business. He would be more worried. Therefore, because of this, old Charles was particularly afraid that Yang Ming would regret. After listening to Yang Ming's words, he stood up suddenly and walked to Zhou Tianxiang. He said earnestly, Old Zhou, you tell me. How have I treated you over the years? Except for this matter, have I done anything wrong to you? Master, why do you say that? No. You have always been very good to me. Zhou Tianxiang said in fear and trepidation. He was secretly surprised. Yang Ming's words of terminating the cooperation actually made old Charles have such a reaction. It seems that Yang Ming is still in a dominant position in the cooperation between them. If this is the case, does it mean that you forgive me? Asked old Charles quickly. Yes, I have forgiven you. Zhou Tianxiang nodded and said, I can understand your mood at that time. It's good that you can understand. Old Charles nodded and said helplessly, who doesn't do it for their children? Yang Ming looked at old Charles with a smile. This old fox knows how to play the emotional card, but I am just scaring him. There is no need to really terminate the cooperation. Well, Mr. Charles, you don't have to be so corny. I was just joking. I will carefully consider the cooperation after I go back. Now my wife is worried about her father's safety, so I won't stay and talk nonsense with you. I will go first. Yang Ming stood up and said to old Charles with a smile. Hee, it's my duty, it's my duty. Then I won't ask you to stay. Oh right, old Joe, I'll get someone to calculate your salary in a while. You've been with me for so many years, so you should retire with dignity. Old Charles laughed. Thank you, master. Zhou Tianxiang didn't expect the ending to be so perfect. He also didn't expect that Yang Ming would talk to old Charles in such an indifferent manner. Bullshit. Zhou Tianxiang felt a chill. Only Yang Ming could say that the conversation with old Charles was bullshit. At this moment, Zhou Tianxiang increasingly couldn't understand Yang Ming. He thought that his daughter's boyfriend was just a student, but now it seemed that this was not the case. It seemed that Yang Ming's power had exceeded Zhou Tianxiang's imagination. He couldn't believe that Yang Ming was actually stronger than old Charles, but this was the case. He had to believe it. What are you thanking me for? You are Mr. Yang's father-in-law. According to this seniority, you are still my elder, so don't call me master. Just call me old Charles. Old Charles said with a smile, how about I call you old Joe in the future? Okay. Old Mr. Charles. Zhou Tianxiang was a little flattered. He never thought that he would have such a day where he could be on equal footing with old Charles. Old Charles ordered someone to settle Zhou Tianxiang's salary and gave Zhou Tianxiang a large pension, so that he could leave the Charles castle with dignity. Yang Ming and Zhou Tianxiang left the castle under the personal escort of old Charles. What made old Charles very depressed was that he found that only the 4 people at the first sentry post were knocked out by Yang Ming, and everything behind was normal. He couldn't figure out how Yang Ming found him through these layers of guards. It was possible to say that he successfully avoided a guard, but how did he get past so many checkpoints? Didn't anyone find him? Obviously, there was really no one. Old Charles wanted to ask several times, but he closed his mouth because of Zhou Tianxiang next to him. However, old Charles was obviously depressed for a while. After sending Yang Ming and Zhou Tianxiang to the car, old Charles waved his hand. Mr. Yang, Mr. Zhou, we will meet again. I look forward to you coming here again. I will welcome you very much. Okay, I will come here to play again. Yang Ming nodded and said. It wasn't until Yang Ming started the car and drove down the mountain road that Zhou Tianxiang recovered from the shock. Looking at Yang Ming, a 19-year-old boy who was the same age as his daughter, Zhou Tianxiang really couldn't use words to describe his mood. His daughter was right. He really came, and it seemed to be very easy to solve the problem for him. From old Charles's attitude to him, it could be seen that Yang Ming didn't ask for anything from old Charles at all. The 2 people stood at the same height and talked equally. Yang Ming, you and Mr. Old Charles. Zhou Tianxiang finally couldn't help but ask. Yang Ming had long known that Zhou Tianxiang would ask this question, so he smiled and said, I have some business cooperation with Mr. Old Charles. We are relatively familiar. This time, when he heard that Zhou Jiejie was my girlfriend, he immediately said that this matter was over, so you don't have to worry too much. I really didn't expect that a hero would come from a young man. Zhou Tianxiang sighed. Giving Jiejie to you makes me feel relieved. Hee, Uncle Zhou, let's not talk about this. We are a family. I am embarrassed by your compliment. Yang Ming smiled. However, this time, it is really thanks to you. Otherwise, I really don't know what to do. If you didn't intervene, old Charles would never let me go so easily, and it would be impossible for him to talk to me so pleasantly. Zhou Tianxiang was still very self-aware. Things are over. Don't mention it again. Yang Ming smiled. Right, Uncle Zhou, you should call Jia quickly. I am afraid that she will be worried. Yeah, I almost forgot about the business. Zhou Tianxiang nodded quickly. He took out his mobile phone and dialed Zhou Jiajia's mobile phone number. Although Zhou Jiajia was very confident in Yang Ming, Zhou Jiajia's mood was still very uneasy before she got the news that her father was safe. The phone suddenly rang, and Zhou Jiajia recovered from her daze and picked up the phone. Hello. Zhou Jiajia saw this special number that was transferred in and subconsciously guessed that it might be her father, but she was not sure. Jiajia, it's me. Zhou Tianxiang was very happy when he heard his daughter's voice. Don't worry. I am safe. We can get together soon. Ah. Dad, are you okay? That's great. Zhou Jiajia's voice was filled with joy from the bottom of her heart. Dad, have you seen Yang Ming? And he is by my side. This time, it is all thanks to him. Otherwise, old Charles's attitude toward me wouldn't have changed so much. Zhou Tianxiang said with emotion, Jiajia, you really found a good man. This time, Dad is borrowing your glory. Dad. Don't say that. Zhou Jiajia suddenly felt a little embarrassed. Isn't that what he should do? Although Zhou Jiajia was very grateful to Yang Ming, she still had to be strong in front of her father so that her father would feel that Yang Ming loved her very much. In fact, this was the case. After all, when Yang Ming came to find old Charles, there was no 100% certainty that it could be resolved peacefully. If it really couldn't be resolved, it could only be resolved by force. But now, it seemed that the ending was still very satisfactory. Anyway, it was not easy to get through the difficulties safely this time. This time, I have also retired. I will not leave after I go back, said Zhou Tianxiang. That's great. Right, Dad, have you called Mom? She is also very anxious. Zhou Jiajia suddenly remembered that she had not told her mother yet. No, I will call her after I call you, said Zhou Tianxiang. And, that's good. You should tell her the good news. Although Zhou Jiajia still wanted to say a few more words, after all, her mother was still thinking about it, so she had to say it reluctantly. You don't want to say a few words to Yang Ming. Although Zhou Tianxiang was also anxious, after all, the matter was solved by Yang Ming, so naturally, he had to listen to Yang Ming first. Uncle Zhou, Jiajia and I have a lot of time to talk at home. You should call Auntie Hua first. Yang Ming smiled. Well, Jiajia, since Yang Ming said so, then I will call your mother first, said Zhou Tianxiang. And, then you should call Mom and tell her that you are safe. Zhou Jiajia said happily. Finally, Zhou Jiajia's heart was relieved, and so was Chen Mengyan and Lin Jiyun. Both of them were also thinking about Yang Ming's comfort. After all, after hearing that the Charles family was an assassin family, Chen Mengyan had been in a state of worry. She was afraid that Yang Ming would be in danger, but now, it seemed that the matter had been resolved. Congratulations. Jiajia. Chen Mengyan also said very happily. Isn't it because Yang Ming is willing to help? Zhou Jiajia smiled. I can meet Yang Ming, and you all. I am really happy. What's the point of saying this? Your matter is what Yang Ming should do. Didn't you just say that? Chen Mengyan laughed. Zhou Jiajia's face suddenly turned red. Indeed, she just said something similar, but that was only for her father. She didn't expect that Chen Mengyan and Lin Jiyun would also hear it. Well, I won't make fun of you. You must have a lot to say to Mom and Dad tonight. Sister Lin and I will go to the kitchen to cook first. I will give you some private time. After that, Chen Mengyan took Lin Jiyun's hand and went to the kitchen. In the days when Yang Ming wasn't around, Chen Mengyan, Lin Jiyun, and Zhou Jijia had been watching a food channel on TV. They had nothing to do, so they made a lot of delicious dishes according to the cooking methods on TV. They were very successful. They planned to wait for Yang Ming to come back and let Yang Ming try one by one. With the growth of age and maturity of mentality, Chen Mengyan didn't want to be too calculative with Yang Ming in terms of feelings. Especially with Yang Ming's status and identity constantly improving, Chen Mengyan also thought it through. Why be so narrow-minded? At least now, when Yang Ming wasn't around, she still had two sisters who could accompany her. Wasn't this also a kind of happiness? Chapter 1148. Zhou Tianxiang listened to his daughters and Yang Ming's words and called his wife. Mother Zhou was actually not as strong as she looked on the surface. After this kind of thing happened, she would be at a loss, just like when Zhou Jijia was shot. This allowed Yang Ming to see another Mother Zhou from another angle. She was not the President Hua who spoke to him in a high and mighty manner, but a wife, a mother. At the beginning, Yang Ming didn't really resent Mother Zhou's attitude. He also understood the feelings of a parent. Just like old Charles now, he also cared about his children. At that time, he was not so outstanding. It was understandable that Mother Zhou didn't want Zhou Jijia to follow him. After all, Zhou Jijia was a proud daughter. In the eyes of many people, she was perfect and proud. In the eyes of outsiders at that time, Yang Ming was just an ordinary person. Of course, the strength that he showed later made Mother Zhou sincerely give her daughter to him. Yang Ming was still a little proud. "Wife, it's me." Zhou Tianxiang's phone was dialed to Mother Zhou. Zhou Tianxiang's voice was a little emotional as if he had experienced life and death, but it was true. If it weren't for the appearance of Yang Ming, no one knew what would happen in the end. Would he die in a foreign land? "Tianxiang. Are you okay?" Mother Zhou had been sitting there since just now. She was not even in the mood to deal with the company's affairs. Now that she heard Zhou Tianxiang's voice, she asked quickly. "It's okay. Everything is over." Zhou Tianxiang smiled and said, "I didn't expect Yang Ming to be old Charles's partner. Mother Zhou was also stunned after listening. Although the strength that Yang Ming showed in Songjiang shocked her, she did not expect that Yang Ming and old Charles had business dealings. They were an assassin group, right? "Yeah, I didn't expect it." Zhou Tianxiang said. As a result, Yang Ming just said that he wanted to terminate the cooperation. Old Charles's attitude toward me immediately changed. To be honest, this is the first time I have seen him talk to a person so humbly. Is this true? Mother Zhou was a little surprised. Xiao Yang is so powerful. When Mother Zhou said this, she also remembered the time when she went to school to find Yang Ming and asked him to leave Zhou Jijia. She suddenly blushed. "I'm in his car now. I might be able to go back in a few days," Zhou Tianxiang said. "That's great. Tell little Yang that I will personally cook for him when he comes back." Mother Zhou said happily. Hee, all right, I'll tell him." Zhou Tianxiang was also very happy. After all, his family could finally be reunited. There was nothing better than this. After hanging up the phone, Zhou Tianxiang was still immersed in the joy and excitement of reuniting with his family. Yang Ming smiled. In fact, sometimes life was so simple. Wasn't the ultimate goal of everything he was doing now to live with his family and lover? "Where are we going now?" Zhou Tianxiang finally returned to reality from his joy. After all, this was Europe. He couldn't just go back to China. It also took some time to go through some procedures. "Go to a friend of mine and stay for a few days, then I will ask him to arrange a series of procedures for you to go back." Yang Ming said, "But this time, I can't go back with you." I have to do some personal things. No problem. Zhou Tianxiang nodded. In his opinion, a person like Yang Ming must be very busy every day. It was impossible for him to be idle at home all day. Since he had a cooperation with old Charles, he would definitely have a cooperative relationship with more people. Therefore, it was normal for him to run around the world. I'm not bothering your friend, right? How should I say? Yang Ming hesitated, but he thought that Zhou Tianxiang would definitely stay at old Buffon's house for a while. If he didn't tell him the truth, old Buffon and his wife would inevitably spill the beans. So, he simply said, actually, he is not my friend. He is one of my disciples. Disciple? Zhou Tianxiang suddenly froze. I know some ancestral martial arts, hee. Yang Ming attributed his own kung fu to his ancestors. Oh, so that's the case. Zhou Tianxiang was a person who had been an assassin family's butler. He was not unfamiliar with some kung fu and martial arts, so there was no doubt at all. He believed what Yang Ming said. So, Uncle Zhou, you don't have to worry about anything. It's just like your own home. Yang Ming smiled and said, there is a saying that a master is like a father. This is the reason. His attitude toward me is very respectful. Zhou Tianxiang nodded. He knew this. The true master-apprentice relationship was that the apprentice was very respectful to the master. The 3-hour drive passed quickly. Yang Ming finally returned to old Buffon's manor on the outskirts. Here, some soldiers could already be seen, but these people obviously knew old Buffon's car, and they also knew Yang Ming, who was driving the car, so they did not make any obstruction. Yang Ming was unimpeded all the way. What is this place? Why is it so heavily guarded? Zhou Tianxiang was a little curious about the identity of Yang Ming's disciple because the security here was no less than old Charles's castle. This is the private manor of my disciple. Usually, outsiders are not allowed to enter, but they all know me and this car. Yang Ming smiled and explained. So that's the case. Zhou Tianxiang nodded after listening. He was more certain that the identity of the owner of this manor was not ordinary. Soon, Yang Ming's car drove into old Buffon's villa in the center of the manor. Old Buffon apparently received the notice from the guard at the door. He greeted them at the door early. When he saw Yang Ming's car arrive, he greeted him excitedly. Master, welcome back safely. Zhou Tianxiang was slightly stunned. He didn't expect Yang Ming's disciple to be a foreigner. Moreover, he spoke Chinese so fluently without the slightest pause. Old Buffon also saw Zhou Tianxiang next to Yang Ming at this time. He was slightly stunned, and his expression changed. He was still afraid that Yang Ming would scold him for speaking too fast. After all, Yang Ming instructed him not to call him master in front of outsiders. Yang Ming also saw old Buffon's embarrassment at the moment. He smiled slightly and said, Old Buffon, this is one of us. He is my girlfriend's father, Zhou Tianxiang. Hello, Mr. Zhou. Nice to meet you. Although old Buffon didn't know which of Yang Ming's girlfriends was Zhou Tianxiang's father, since he was the father of one of the master's wives, he should be extra respectful. Hello, you are. Yang Ming just said old Buffon's name, but Zhou Tianxiang didn't hear it clearly. I am Mr. Yang's eldest disciple, Buffon XXXX. After old Buffon said a lot of names, he said, but everyone is used to calling me old Buffon. Old Buffon. You are the Buffon families. Zhou Tianxiang was shocked when he heard old Buffon's words. He had been in Europe for so many years, so he naturally heard of old Buffon's name. Although the Buffon family and the Charles family belonged to two different families, they were both top families. The Buffon family was much stronger than the Charles family. They had extraordinary connections in many countries in Europe. Even the presidents of some countries had to get the support of the Buffon family before they could take office. The patriarch of such a powerful family is actually Yang Ming's disciple? Isn't this too amazing? If this is the case, then old Charles's attitude toward Yang Ming is not surprising. The patriarch of the Buffon family is respectful to Yang Ming. What qualifications do you, old Charles, have to act like a big shot in front of Yang Ming? Of course, what Zhou Tianxiang didn't know was that Yang Ming used two different methods and policies for old Buffon and old Charles. Old Buffon sincerely respected Yang Ming, and old Charles had some interest in it. I am the patriarch of the Buffon family. Old Buffon's answer made Zhou Tianxiang confirm the thoughts in his heart. This Yang Ming is really unfathomable. In the evening, under the warm hospitality of old Buffon's banquet, Zhou Tianxiang was arranged to live in an independent small villa. Zhou Tianxiang did not expect that one day, he would actually receive such a high standard of reception from old Buffon. This made him feel somewhat flattered, and he also felt a little proud of himself. At this moment, his mentality finally changed. He was no longer the humble manager. His current identity was Yang Ming's father-in-law, a person whom even old Charles and old Buffon had to respect. Back at the residence, Zhou Tianxiang quickly dialed Mother Zhou's phone again. Just now, because Yang Ming was present, the two people couldn't say much. Now that there were no outsiders, the two people still had a lot of private words to say. After all, they hadn't seen each other for a long time. After going through this disaster, the relationship between the two people was closer. This kind of feeling was spiritual, regardless of distance, time, and place. At this moment, Yang Ming also sat in front of the computer again and sent an invitation to Chen Mengyan and the others for a video chat. Of course, when he said that he wanted to have sex with Zhou Jijia in a video chat, it was just a casual remark. Yang Ming naturally wouldn't do such a dirty thing. Although they already knew that Yang Ming was safe, at this time, when they saw Yang Ming himself through the internet video, Chen Mengyan and the others' hearts were really at ease. Yang Ming, thank you. Zhou Jijia said very sincerely. Thank me for what? What is there to thank for a family? Yang Ming smiled. And I also said that it was just a small effort. Yang Ming, how many things are you hiding from us? Chen Mengyan was happy, but there was a little loss in her heart. She felt that it seemed that Yang Ming was getting farther and farther away from her. Now, Yang Ming was no longer the bad student who always wanted to skip class behind her back and bicker with her in high school, but a strong man who couldn't be more strong. Miracles kept flashing through his body. He went from being poor at the beginning to holding hundreds of millions of dollars in his hands now. From the initial small punk at the bottom of society to the current situation where he was on equal footing with the world celebrities, and even above them. And all of this only took a year's time, or it could be said that it only took half a year's time. For Yang Ming's family background, no one was more familiar than Chen Mengyan. Chen Mengyan also saw Yang Ming's file. At that time, Yang Ming's father was an ordinary worker in the bus factory, and his mother was a laid-off worker. This kind of family could be described as ordinary and poor. But, what about a year later? Yang Ming's father, Yang Dehai, became the chairman of the board of directors of the Mingyang Heavy Industry Group. Yang Ming's mother also became the manager of the community property company. Although Chen Mengyan didn't pay much attention to business news, she could occasionally know how popular the Mingyang Heavy Industry Group was now from the tone of her parents' chat. Not only did they provide OEM auto parts to many automobile companies, but they also independently developed civil helicopters. She heard that many regions in Asia had placed orders to Mingyang Heavy Industry. Even some rich people in some rich countries such as the Middle East had also chosen the helicopters produced by Mingyang Heavy Industry. This was enough to show the super strength of Mingyang Heavy Industry. If there was no Yang Ming's contribution in this, Chen Mengyan wouldn't believe it. She had also seen Yang Ming's parents before. After Yang Ming's parents became leaders, they gradually changed their previous dull and honest character. Therefore, all these changes were not achieved by the efforts of Yang Ming's parents, but by Yang Ming's efforts. In the past, when Chen Mengyan and Yang Ming were together, although she didn't mean to look down on Yang Ming, she also had some little princess superiority. After all, she studied well, was beautiful, and had a good family background. At least, she was much better than Yang Ming when he was in high school. But now, Chen Mengyan didn't have this feeling at all. The speed of Yang Ming's development was too terrifying. Chen Mengyan didn't see what Yang Ming was busy with, but Yang Ming's huge network of forces was formed one by one. Just like this time, in the confrontation with the Charles family, according to Zhou Jijia, Yang Ming just went to threaten old Charles to stop the cooperation with them. Old Charles put down his attitude and spoke humbly to a butler who used to be under him. This was enough to show that Yang Ming wasn't the same as before. Therefore, when Chen Mengyan said this sentence, "How many things are you hiding from us?" At that time, her heart was still very aggrieved, just like a child who lost her favorite toy. Although this toy had not been lost, it was getting farther and farther away from her. This kind of mood, only Chen Mengyan could deeply understand it. Lin Jiyun and Zhou Jijia wouldn't have such a feeling. Chen Mengyan didn't ask for anything. She only hoped that many years later, in Yang Ming's heart, she would still be a very important girl. At the very least, he would remember those good memories that once belonged to only two people, in the past, when she was in her senior year of high school, that spring, that movie theater, that once was charming, that Yang Ming who only belonged to her, that memory of a blushing face and heartbeat, although at the beginning, Chen Mengyan was somewhat annoyed that Yang Ming lied to her. But now in retrospect, this had become a beautiful memory. For a while, Chen Mengyan was a little distracted. "Mengyan, what's wrong with you?" Yang Ming felt that Chen Mengyan seemed to be a little sad. Chen Mengyan's expression change naturally couldn't escape Yang Ming's eyes, but something that surprised Yang Ming happened. I can actually see what Chen Mengyan is thinking. Through the internet, through the optical cable in the sea, I can see Chen Mengyan's thoughts. Is my ability to see other people's thoughts not restricted by space and distance? Even if the person in front of me is only expressed in the form of a number, I can still see her thoughts. After Yang Ming learned about Chen Mengyan's thoughts, he was slightly amused. This girl is really too sensitive. She is destined to occupy a large part of my heart in this life. Yang Ming called Chen Mengyan a few more times before she recovered. Ah. Chen Mengyan recovered and smiled apologetically. Lin Jiyun and Zhou Jijia were still by her side. She wanted to be a good example, so she smiled and said, "Nothing. I was just thinking about how to punish you when I come back." "Hee, is that so? I thought that after I go back, you planned to ask me to go to the movies alone." Yang Ming smiled. Ah. Chen Mengyan seemed to be exposed. Her face turned red. What are you talking about?" All of a sudden, Chen Mengyan, who was trying to be calm, became incoherent. How did Yang Ming know that I was thinking about going to the cinema? How did he know? Did he see something? Impossible. I won't write my thoughts on my face. Could it be that he just said it casually? And it is very possible. Thinking of this, Chen Mengyan calmed down a little. Why are we going to the cinema? Are we going to watch a 3D movie? It doesn't matter what you are watching. The key is who you are watching it with. Oh yeah, bring your little windbreaker. You can cover yourself with it when you are cold. Yang Ming said naturally. Zhou Jijia and Lin Jiyun naturally didn't understand the deeper meaning of Yang Ming's words. They thought that it was just a normal conversation with Chen Mengyan, so they didn't care. However, Chen Mingyan's face was even redder, as if she had a fever. She didn't know where she exposed a flaw. How did Yang Ming see through her thoughts? Now, she could be completely sure that Yang Ming was referring to something. Otherwise, just go to the movies. Why did he bring a little windbreaker? He must have thought of that matter too. Could it be that there is really the legendary telepathy between husband and wife? Thinking of this, Chen Mengyan was a little happy again. She didn't care about being shy and nodded very happily. Okay, this is what you said. After you come back, accompany me to the movies. And, that's for sure. Yang Ming smiled strangely, making Chen Mengyan more and more sure that Yang Ming must have thought of the same thing as her. Then you talk to Jia first. I am going to watch TV. My favorite TV program is starting. Chen Mengyan was a little embarrassed and hurriedly left the computer. However, it was true that the food program that she watched every day was about to start. Chapter 1149. Yang Ming smiled helplessly. Both of them had done what they should do. He didn't expect that Chen Mengyan was still so shy when it came to the past. However, who could forget the throbbing and uneasiness in the heart of their first love? The passionate moment that didn't seem to be very passionate now was so unforgettable in the memory. On this side, it was already late at night. Chen Mengyan also asked Lin Jiyun to help cook. Zhou Jia was left here alone, and she was a little embarrassed. She chatted with Yang Ming for a while and got up to help. The reason was a bit ridiculous. She was afraid that Chen Mengyan and Lin Jiyun really misunderstood that she was having sex with Yang Ming through a video call. This made Yang Ming sigh a little. Chen Mengyan's appeal had been established invisibly, and it was even better than his own. However, this was also a scene that Yang Ming was more happy to see. At least, it was more harmonious and less worrisome. Only in this way could he have more time to create a better future for them. Yang Ming had watched a TV series called The Woman in the Big House. The situation in it made Yang Ming tremble with fear. If he were to encounter the same thing as the male lead, he would really be better off dead. Turning off the computer, Yang Ming went out of the room and returned to the bedroom. Wang Xiaoyan was already asleep. Yang Ming didn't want to disturb her, so he carefully lay down beside her. However, this slight movement still aroused Wang Xiaoyan's vigilance. She opened her eyes slightly and glanced at the person beside her. It was Yang Ming, then she closed her eyes again and continued to sleep. But this time, it was obvious that Wang Xiaoyan slept more soundly than before. Yang Ming couldn't help but smile bitterly. One of the disadvantages of being an assassin was that they slept too lightly. Even the slightest movement in the surroundings could alert them. However, when Wang Xiaoyan slept beside him, she slept very peacefully. She also understood that if there was anything unusual, he would be able to detect it immediately. Yang Ming was really inexplicable about agreeing to Alice's bet. Why did I agree to her? Perhaps Yang Ming was a little curious about her. This was a woman that Yang Ming could not figure out. In front of her, Yang Ming always had an uncomfortable feeling, which made Yang Ming very uncomfortable. Yang Ming agreed to her request because he wanted to know more about her. Early the next morning, old Buffon's men sent the full set of procedures for Zhou Tianxiang's return. Zhou Tianxiang was very surprised that old Buffon's efficiency was so fast. One had to know that even if the Charles family had stepped in, the procedures could not have been completed so quickly. Of course, this was the difference between the Buffon family and the Charles family. The Buffon family's political connections in Europe were much stronger than that of the Charles family. Even many politicians were originally from the Buffon family, so the things that old Buffon wanted to do would always be done properly in the first place. Zhou Tianxiang was eager to return home, so he didn't have much small talk with Yang Ming. He just agreed that after Yang Ming returned to China, he must come to visit his home. Yang Ming agreed with a smile. Old Buffon's special car sent Zhou Tianxiang to the special VIP passage at the airport, and he directly boarded the plane. This also let Zhou Tianxiang once again see how powerful the old Buffon family was. This land where he had worked for nearly 20 years could be considered as a complete farewell today. Recalling the ups and downs of his life, Zhou Tianxiang was a little disappointed. However, he didn't have the slightest nostalgia. The memories of this land left only sadness. I have contributed so much to the old Charles family, but what did I get in return? If it weren't for the appearance of Yang Ming, I am afraid I would have died in a foreign land, right? What made Zhou Tianxiang understand was that in dealing with such a family, only interests would affect their nerves. They were indifferent and ruthless. Only when Yang Ming showed an attitude of canceling the cooperation did old Charles smile at him. Zhou Tianxiang was not stupid. He could naturally see it. But he didn't feel that anything was wrong. Instead, he was very happy. Old Charles could also bow in front of him. The plane slowly took off. I am going to be reunited with my family. Zhou Tianxiang's eyes began to be a little wet. Are you really going to help that Alice gamble? Wang Xiaoyan was a little surprised by Yang Ming's decision. Do you know how to gamble? Wang Xiaoyan only knew that Yang Ming's skills were extraordinary, but she didn't know that Yang Ming was also very good at gambling. A little. Yang Ming nodded. Do you like her? Wang Xiaoyan could only guess so. She didn't understand why Yang Ming wanted to help Alice. The two people had no intersection at all. I like her. Yang Ming smiled and shook his head. Do you think I am a pedophile? She is not young, at least she looks that way. Wang Xiaoyan shrugged. At least, I think her figure seems to be hotter than mine. Yang Ming was a little helpless. Well, I admit that what you said is true, but I helped her not because I like her, but because I want to get to know this person more. If you don't like her, why do you want to get to know her? Wang Xiaoyan asked. I always feel that this person is not simple. I don't know why, but she gives me a very bad feeling. It makes me feel very uneasy. I always feel that there is something hidden behind this person. Yang Ming sighed and told the truth. Wang Xiaoyan also recovered her original calmness at this time. She put away her previous coquettish look and nodded to Yang Ming. I also have this feeling. How do I say it? This person makes me very uncomfortable when she speaks. She is not like a 15-year-old girl, but sometimes, I feel that she is very naive. In short, this feeling is very bad. Probably we think too much. Children who grow up in Europe are very precocious. Yang Ming said with a smile. Wang Xiaoyan shook her head and said nothing. Maybe I'm thinking too much. What happens to her doesn't have much to do with us. After all, we're only staying here temporarily and will leave in the end. However, there's another very important matter that I want to discuss with you. Yang Ming smiled and changed the topic. I wanted to tell you yesterday, but you fell asleep, so I didn't say it. What is it? Wang Xiaoyan asked after listening. It's about the cooperation with the Charles family. This time I went to the Charles family. In addition to helping Uncle Zhou get out of trouble, I also talked to old Charles about the cooperation, said Yang Ming. Oh. Wang Xiaoyan suddenly became interested. How is it? Did they agree? They agreed, but their conditions for cooperation surprised me. Yang Ming smiled and said, right, there is also good news. Our Black Butterfly assassin group has entered the top 50 of the world's assassin groups. Oh. So fast. Wang Xiaoyan did not expect an unknown assassin group to suddenly become one of the world's top 50 assassin groups. We seem to have just received a mission. This kind of mission belongs to the highest level of difficulty, so the points after completion are relatively high. Don't you know? Yang Ming was a bit baffled. Logically, Wang Xiaoyan should know. I haven't completed a similar mission before. How would I know? Wang Xiaoyan smiled bitterly. But I have heard that this kind of mission points are high, but I didn't expect it to be so high. I didn't expect it. I only knew about it from old Charles. Yang Ming spread his hands, indicating that he didn't know. At this rate of development, we can rush to the top 10 in less than a year. Really? Wang Xiaoyan was shocked, and her face suddenly showed a joyful smile. The ranking of the assassin group had always been Wang Xiaoyan's sore point. Although after being with Yang Ming, Wang Xiaoyan was full of confidence in the future of the Black Butterfly assassin group, it was uncertain whether she could make the assassin group stronger in the time required by her father. After all, the assassin groups in front were not to be trifled with. Moreover, the world's first king of assassins firmly occupied the first place. It was indeed not an easy thing to become the world's first. But at this moment, what Yang Ming said gave her hope. Completing this kind of super difficult mission would give a lot of points. If a few more were completed, then it would not be a big problem to enter the world's top 10. However, we don't need to wait for a year now. Yang Ming said with a smile. What do you mean? Asked Wang Xiaoyan, stunned. Old Charles means that he wants to hand over the assassin group under Charles to us to manage, and then only get dividends every year. Yang Ming said, in this way, if we carry out business integration, we can even go further in a short time and surpass the world's first-ranked butterfly family. Ah! Wang Xiaoyan was completely shocked this time. She looked at Yang Ming with some puzzlement. Old Charles. He wants to hand over the assassin group to us. Are you serious? Indeed, this news was really too shocking. How could the world's third-ranked assassin group be handed over to a newly established assassin group? Isn't this a joke? It was no wonder that Wang Xiaoyan did not believe it, because things were really too unbelievable. I didn't believe it before, but this is the case. Yang Ming said with a smile, you know what little Charles is like. He is busy with racing all day long and doesn't care about his family business, so old Charles is anxious. After all, he is already very old. He can't hold on for a few years. He also has the intention to retire. He just happened to meet me, so he talked to me about this. Yang Ming naturally wouldn't tell Wang Xiaoyan his identity as the king of assassins, so he could only explain it this way. No way, such a coincidence. Wang Xiaoyan lamented that his luck was so good. It just happened to be when old Charles needed help. Of course, she didn't know that the reason why old Charles handed over the assassin group to Yang Ming was that he fully considered Yang Ming's identity. Moreover, he would verify with Fang Tian afterward before he could carry out the final cooperation. Sometimes, things are so coincidental. Yang Ming said with a smile, this is an opportunity. If you really want to make the Black Butterfly assassin group the world's first, then we have to seize this opportunity. After we go back, we have to plan well. Wang Xiaoyan nodded excitedly. I know. We must not miss this opportunity. Although he said this to Wang Xiaoyan, in fact, Yang Ming was very clear in his heart that this cooperation was close because old Charles was more enthusiastic than him. Even if the cooperation didn't work out, it could only be because he didn't agree. Old Charles had no problem with it. As the two were talking, there was a knock on the door outside the room. Yang Ming looked out through the door panel. It was old Buffon. What's the matter? Asked Yang Ming. Master, Miss Alice is here. She said she wants to see you. Old Buffon said respectfully. Oh. She came so fast. Yang Ming was stunned. He didn't expect that she had already arranged things over there after just 2 days of agreeing with her. What do we do now? I said you are not here, or... Old Buffon saw that Yang Ming didn't say whether he wanted to see her or not, but he said that she came so fast, so he asked. I will go over. After Yang Ming finished speaking, he walked to the door of the room. When he opened the door, he saw old Buffon at the door of the room. If there is anything in the future, just call the servant. You don't have to come in person. How can that be? You are my master. Old Buffon said stubbornly. Well, do whatever you want. Yang Ming saw old Buffon like this and didn't insist. After all, Yang Ming couldn't stay for more than a few days. What old Buffon wanted to do was up to him. Yang Ming went out of the villa with old Buffon and walked to old Buffon's main villa. Taking advantage of this walk, Yang Ming asked, Right, what is the background of this Alice? Miss Alice. I am not very clear about her specific background, but the leader of Country L introduced us to each other. She has always called me Uncle Buffon. She is a very cute child. Old Buffon said, because of the relationship with the leader of Country L, many people in the upper class give her face, but now she has established her own forces. Is she really only 15 years old? Yang Ming was a little surprised. It seems that the rumors outside are not wrong. Alice really has the support of a country behind her. But what is her relationship with Country L? Yang Ming didn't know about this. Is the leader of Country L very popular here? Country L was a country in Africa. It was not too far from Country X, and its land area was not large. It used to be like Country X, a country that was at war for a long time. However, 5 years ago, the war suddenly ended, and a small country with a relatively stable political situation was established. However, how can the leader of such a small African country have so much face in the upper class of Europe? Even if Africa and Europe were relatively close, the identity was there. General Kars probably didn't know anyone in Europe, right? Alice is 15 years old, but she should be 16 years old this year. Old Buffon said, for Country L, I don't know much about this. However, it is said that 5 years ago, the war-torn Country L suddenly got the support of a mysterious force and quickly calmed the civil strife. The behind-the-scenes leader of this mysterious force supported the current leader to come to power. This leader's power is not very good, but the behind-the-scenes leader is a very powerful person, but I don't know who the specific person is because I am not very concerned about the things in Africa. It turns out to be like this. Yang Ming was relieved after listening to old Buffon's explanation. How similar are Country L and the current Country X? Country X developed with its own support. Probably, Country L was the same in the beginning. However, if Master is interested in Country L, I will try to ask people to collect some information in this regard, said old Buffon. Well, then I'll have to trouble you. Yang Ming nodded. He did have some interest in the history of Country L, it's no trouble. Old Buffon shook his head and said with a smile. Old Buffon was very happy to do something for Yang Ming. He was afraid that Yang Ming would not trouble him with anything. Then, he would be a little restless. The two walked to the door of the main villa. Yang Ming also stopped the previous topic. Don't let Alice know what we said before. Don't worry, Master. Old Buffon nodded and said. When he entered the main villa, he saw Alice sitting on the sofa in the living room talking to Mrs. Old Buffon. When she saw Yang Ming coming over, Alice raised her head. I thought you regretted it and wanted to hide from me. At this moment, Alice was like a coquettish little girl. Her shrewdness in the business world could not be seen at all. However, one could not judge a book by its cover. Yang Ming knew this very well, so he was not interested in Alice's charming smile. Before I take action, I can regret it at any time. Isn't that right? You. Alice did not expect Yang Ming to be such a rascal and suddenly say such a sentence. She was a little unaccustomed to it. Usually, she dealt with people from the upper class. These people paid the most attention to their image, so they often kept their word. Even if their face was swollen, they still had to pretend to be rich. Yang Ming's sentence of regretting it at any time made Alice feel a little unaccustomed. What about me? I haven't received the reward yet. Naturally, I have the right to regret it. Yang Ming smiled. However, for this reward, I will reluctantly take action. You can say whatever you want now. If you can't win the game, Alice was so angry that her teeth were itching, but she could only threaten him resentfully. Can't win. So what? At most, I don't want the reward. Yang Ming smiled indifferently. You won't give me the reward regardless of whether I win or lose, right? Alice gritted her teeth and spat out 3 words, go to hell. When is the game? Yang Ming sat down and resumed the topic. Chapter 1150. Tonight or tomorrow night, it's up to you. Alice said, the casino is ready. The Korean king of gamblers has also been contacted. Yang Ming nodded after listening. What is the origin of this Korean king of gamblers? Why does he have to gamble with me? Indeed, I shocked the world in the Nanching casino in Macau, but that was only a fact known by a few people. It could be said that I was just a kid who was not famous in the gambling world. However, the problem was that the other party was the king of gamblers. The king of gamblers in Korea. Although Yang Ming had not been in contact with this kind of person, he had seen a pig run even if he had not eaten pork. In some movies about gambling, the king of gamblers was a very badass existence. Why would he challenge a newcomer who was not famous? If it was spread out, wouldn't it be bad for their reputation? To be honest, Yang Ming didn't think that he was famous enough to let the king of gamblers challenge him. Moreover, he wasn't a person in the gambling world. Even if the king of gamblers won against him, so what? The reason why the king of gamblers was called the king of gamblers must be quite strong. Why would he care about such a little reputation? Moreover, this couldn't be said to be a reputation, right? Did the king of gamblers announce to others that he had one? Let's not talk about whether anyone would believe it. Even if someone believed it, did they know who Yang Ming was? Could it be that when the king of gamblers went out, he brought the video of himself in the Nanching casino, played it to others first, and then said, I won against this person in the video? It would be strange if others didn't think of him as a psychopath. Moreover, the authenticity of the video would definitely be doubted by many people. They would think that it was a movie. In that case, the king of gamblers would lose his face. Therefore, after returning, Yang Ming began to think about Alice's true intentions. Because of Zhou Tianxiang's incident, Yang Ming temporarily put this matter aside. At this time, when he saw Alice, he remembered it. Is the Korean king of gamblers willing to gamble with me? Yang Ming asked. After watching your video, he agreed, said Alice. Yang Ming nodded. This was reasonable. However, would the Korean king of gamblers be so patient to watch the video that Alice gave him? Of course, Yang Ming didn't know about these things. Then let's do it tonight. The earlier we finish, the earlier we can. Yang Ming said, you can arrange it. Okay. When Alice saw that Yang Ming agreed, she was overjoyed. When she saw Yang Ming's attitude before, she thought that this matter would most likely not succeed. Then why are you still sitting here? Yang Ming didn't have time to chat with her. If he had the time, he might as well go back to his room and chat with Wang Xiaoyan. He didn't have the mood to chat with this little girl. Alice glared angrily. She was also a celebrity in the upper class of Europe. She would be popular wherever she went. Why was it that when it came to Yang Ming, it felt like he didn't want her to stay even a minute longer? However, since Yang Ming had already asked her to leave, then Alice didn't need to ask for a snub here. Besides, she had to go back and arrange for the competition at night. Alice stood up and glared at Yang Ming. Then, she said to the old Buffon couple, "Uncle Buffon, Auntie Buffon, then I will go first. Don't you want to sit for a while?" asked Mrs. Old Buffon with a smile. "No, there are people here who don't welcome me," said Alice bitterly. Hee hee. Mrs. Old Buffon laughed twice, but she didn't say anything. Alice, on the other hand, was greatly surprised. Before, when she came, she was looking for Yang Ming, but she didn't expect Old Buffon to personally call Yang Ming. This made Alice very surprised. What kind of character was Old Buffon? His status in Europe was much higher than Alice's. He could simply find someone to call Yang Ming, but Old Buffon insisted on calling him personally. Now, Alice thought that after she said that there were people here who didn't welcome her, Mrs. Old Buffon could say a few words for her to stay. However, she didn't expect that Mrs. Old Buffon just smiled. This made Alice even more surprised. What is the relationship between Yang Ming and the Buffon family? It seems that he is not as simple as an ordinary guest. He should be a very important guest. However, what can the old Buffon family use Yang Ming for? This was what Alice couldn't figure out. Old Buffon didn't try to persuade her to stay. He just said, "Come and sit when you are free." Alice left the old Buffon family's villa in a depressed mood. If it weren't for the fact that she had to rely on Yang Ming for the evening, she really wanted to turn against Yang Ming on the spot. After getting in the car and driving out of the area of the old Buffon manor, Alice picked up the phone and dialed a number. "Hello, brother. It's me. Little AI. N." Yang Ming agreed. "Tonight." "Yes, in my territory." "Okay, then you arrange it." Alice said, "Nothing will happen, right?" "Don't worry. It has been arranged. Nothing will happen." On the other side of the phone, a low voice said, "That's good." Alice nodded and said. After Alice left, Yang Ming also returned to his villa and left. He discussed with Wang Xiaoyan about the Charles family's assassin group, but there was no key to the discussion now. After a while, both of them deviated from the topic. The armed forces in Country X were eliminated one by one under Li Chang's thunderous power. This allowed General Kars to truly master the political power in Country X. However, this kind of small war-torn country was at war all year round, and it would not make any waves internationally. Even Yang Ming did not receive any official news. He only knew about it under Li Chang's report. General Kars personally called Yang Ming. His tone on the phone was submissive. He seemed to have adapted to his identity as Yang Ming's subordinate. Yang Ming was surprised by Kars' change. He did not expect him to adapt so quickly. In fact, if General Kars did not understand the situation, he would not be able to go from a low-level mercenary to the position of the temporary president of a small country. He now saw the key to the situation. As long as he followed Yang Ming's footsteps, then he would have a good life. "Mr. Kars. General Kars. It should be Prime Minister Kars." His secretary knocked on the door and came in. The secretary was still the same secretary who had followed Karsi on his expeditions, so Karsi didn't hide some things from him. Only he dared to speak bluntly to Karsi about some things. "What is it?" Kars raised his head. "Our finances have no money," the secretary said with some embarrassment. "Didn't we disband the army? We have no military expenditure. How can we not have money?" asked Kars. It is true that there is no military expenditure. The secretary nodded. But after the war, Country X needs to be rebuilt. Many places need to be rebuilt. This is a lot of money. Cars nodded. Indeed, he had been looking at the map of Country X these days. Many places had to be rebuilt. In the past, except for the capital of Country X, the other border cities were occupied by various armed forces, so there was no need to build at all. But now it was different. These armed forces were eliminated one by Li Chang. Cars also took back the cities that had been occupied by various armed forces. Therefore, construction was a more serious problem. Can you postpone the construction? General Cars sighed and asked, wait until the taxes here in the capital are collected, then start construction. Some can, some can't. Those armed forces are gone. We must establish an administrative office in the local area to effectively maintain the normal order of the city. Otherwise, the residents there may have riots or even large-scale immigration. General Cars nodded. Indeed, these were urgent matters. It was impossible for an area to have no manager. In the past, there were armed forces to govern, but now, how much does it cost? Asked General Cars. At least $5 billion. The secretary was also helpless. After all, this project was huge. So much. General Cars was a little helpless. Do you have any good ideas? Let's hear it. Carsey knew his secretary very well. Under normal circumstances, he would only tell Carsey after he had made a decision. So now, he should have a plan, but this plan was more difficult. Mr. Carsey, you see. Can we apply to Mr. Yang to borrow a sum of money temporarily? The secretary suggested. This. I'm afraid it's a bit difficult, right? General Cars shook his head after listening. Every year, we have to pay Captain Li Chang a sum of military funds. Now, the military funds have not been paid, and we still have to borrow money from others. Is this okay? I think it should be okay. The secretary nodded and analyzed. Although we are the rulers of Country X, Mr. Yang is the actual owner of the country behind the scenes, this is also true. Cars listened to the secretary's analysis and felt that this was indeed the case, so he no longer hesitated. He picked up the phone and dialed Li Chang's number. Of course, Cars would not call Yang Ming directly to discuss these trivial matters because he also knew that Yang Ming was very busy every day. He left Li Chang here because he wanted Li Chang to be fully responsible for all the matters here. Captain Li, hello. I am Cars, said Cars concisely. In front of Li Chang, he did not need to be too polite. It was just like the work style of the same level. Because Cars also understood that he and Li Chang were both Yang Ming's two men. One was in charge of government affairs, and the other was in charge of military affairs. Hello, Prime Minister Cars. What's the matter? Asked Li Chang. This is the case. Now my finances here are very tight. Can you see if you can transfer some funds from your side to lend to me? I will use them for the construction of the city, said Cars. Is your finances very tight? Li Chang was stunned. After those armed forces are eliminated, there should be a lot of minerals left in their territory, right? The rent of these minerals should be a lot of money, right? The owners of these minerals have signed contracts with the previous armed forces. If I forcibly collect the rent, I am afraid that these people will unite. Cars smiled bitterly. Cars did not dare to take back the minerals now. Last time, he thought that the Huang family was a soft persimmon. He wanted to pinch them, but he did not expect that he would step on a landmine this time. The Huang family actually had a relationship with Yang Ming. Therefore, Cars did not dare to act rashly now. Moreover, it was not a big deal if there were only one or two of these mines. If all the mine owners joined forces, it was not a small force. Now, General Kars was seeking stability, and he was afraid of causing large-scale mutiny and riots. So that's the case. Li Chang nodded and said, I will ask Brother Yang, and then I will give you the news. Okay, then I will trouble you. Captain Li. Kars listened to Li Chang's tone and knew that this matter was likely to be successful. He was relieved. After Li Chang hung up the phone call with Kars, he called Yang Ming. Brother Yang, I am Li Chang. Li Chang said, Kars just called me and told me about this situation. Is it convenient for you to listen to me? And, you say it. Yang Ming now only had Wang Xiaoyan by his side, so it was convenient to talk. Country X needs large-scale reconstruction after the war, but Kars is short of funds. He wants to borrow money from us. Li Chang said, I suggest that he take back all the minerals in Country X, and then conduct a unified investment distribution, but he doesn't dare to do it, and there is no problem with money. Yang Ming said, how much? Let him give me a plan. I will look at it and transfer it to him. As for the minerals, you take people to take back all the mines, and then conduct a unified public bidding to obtain them. Okay, Mr. Yang, said Li Chang. Right, I heard that Li Ziqing's family also has an iron mine in the north. You inquire about it, and then catch all the people inside. Yang Ming suddenly remembered the Li family in Singapore, so he instructed Li Chang. I understand. Don't worry, Mr. Yang. Li Chang noted down what Yang Ming said one by one. When Kars learned that Yang Ming agreed to lend money, he was very happy. It seemed that Yang Ming really wanted to support him, so he should perform well and take care of Country X. As for Li Chang's proposal to take back all the minerals and conduct a unified bidding, Kars had no opinion. If Li Chang was willing to do it, it would be better. This way, it would be easier to manage. Otherwise, these people would be a thorn in Kars' side, which would give him a headache. What made Kars the happiest was that in those more remote cities, Li Chang also agreed to send troops to temporarily maintain local law and order. At least before the establishment of the administrative office, military control would be implemented. For Yang Ming, the matter of Country X was just a small episode. It was just a small place. Kars and Li Chang could do whatever they wanted. If they really made some achievements, Yang Ming would naturally be very happy. At 6:00 in the evening, Alice's car arrived at the door of Old Buffon's manor on time. Yang Ming did not bring Wang Xiaoyan with him, but he went out alone. Just you. Seeing that Yang Ming came out alone, Alice was also a bit puzzled. Why didn't Yang Ming bring Wang Xiaoyan with him? Just me. Do I need others to participate in gambling? Yang Ming shrugged and said. Your girlfriend, you don't want to bring her. Don't most people have a woman sitting in their arms when they gamble? Alice seemed to ask with some unwillingness. You mean Yan Yan? She is tired and resting. Yang Ming smiled and said, don't I have you? Me? Humph, wait until you win the game. When Alice saw that Yang Ming said this, she did not say anything more. She opened the door and let Yang Ming get in the car. The driver was a middle-aged woman who might be Alice's full-time driver. Yang Ming did not ask much. He sat side by side with Alice in the back seat of the car. Yang Ming did not recognize Alice's car. It was a relatively rare brand, or perhaps it was specially customized. There was no brand at all, but Yang Ming did not care about these things. The person who is competing with you today is called Park Jinan. He is the king of gamblers in South Korea. He is very famous in Macau and Las Vegas. After Yang Ming got in the car, Alice began to introduce Park Jinan's information. In last year's Macau Asian King of Gamblers tournament, Park Jinan won second place in the Asian King of Gamblers tournament, second only to Tong, the King of Gamblers from Thailand. In the Las Vegas World King of Gamblers tournament 3 years ago, he also achieved a good result of 15th place. Are you telling me this to attack my confidence? Yang Ming was amused as he listened to these meaningless numbers. I am kindly reminding you not to underestimate the enemy. Alice said, but if you don't want to listen, then just pretend that I didn't say it. Well, then you continue. Yang Ming said, but I want to hear some more valuable information, such as what this guy is good at. Park Jinan is good at 5-card stud and blackjack. Of course, he is not very bad at other things such as big or small. Alice said, tonight's gambling game, you decide what to compete. Oh, unfortunately, these two are also what I am good at. Yang Ming smiled and said, of course, I am also good at big or small. Alice was a little speechless. No matter how she looked at Yang Ming's sloppy appearance, he didn't look like a gambling master. She really didn't know if the person in the video in Macau was him. Looking at the clothes on Yang Ming's body, Alice sighed again. What is this? He is wearing a sports shirt. How is this a costume to participate in such an important occasion? But thinking of what her brother said before, Alice didn't care. Just let him wear whatever he wants. Anyway. Chapter 1151. I hope you can be more formal in a while. After all, you represent our Alice Casino. I don't want to be laughed at by others. Alice looked at Yang Ming and sighed helplessly. If he is willing to bet with me, then he will bet with me. If he doesn't want to bet with me, I won't force it. Yang Ming smiled indifferently. Of course, since he has agreed, I don't think he will care about my little details, right? Probably so. Alice felt that Yang Ming didn't look like a person from the upper class at all. He was even somewhat out of tune with the upper class. If you said that he was low-key, he was very high-profile. If you said that he was high-profile, he was not in the right place. Grandstanding didn't seem to be the case, but from the video in Macau, it could be seen that Yang Ming really liked to show off. Do you need me to arrange for the God of Gamblers entrance music to be played? Mr. God of Gamblers. Alice snorted. She didn't know why, but she was very uncomfortable when she looked at Yang Ming's expression. She couldn't help but speak sarcastically. Damn, no way. You even found out about my interest. Yang Ming pretended to be very surprised and glanced at Alice. He widened his eyes. It turns out that you have already prepared it. Then play it. Alice was completely speechless by Yang Ming's shamelessness this time. This guy is really climbing up the ladder when he sees a pole. I just casually sarcastically said a sentence to him. How can I play the God of Gamblers entrance music for him? Seeing Alice's smile that was uglier than crying was stiff, Yang Ming was secretly happy. Little girl, you want to compete with me in terms of shamelessness. You are still too inexperienced, oh. What's wrong with your expression? Could it be that this music is difficult? Yang Ming pretended to be surprised and asked. No. Alice forced herself to control her emotions and said. Is there no difficulty, or is there no such music? Yang Ming asked again in a very irritating manner. Alice really wanted to kick Yang Ming to death, but she thought of the plan for the evening. She didn't need this time. She took a breath and said faintly, there is no difficulty. I will arrange it. Oh, if you give me a suit and white scarf worn by Gao Jing, I don't mind. Yang Ming continued. Okay. Alice nodded expressionlessly. She thought to herself, whatever, do whatever you want. I'll satisfy you for now. The car was parked in the underground parking lot of the Alice Casino. When Alice got off the car, she was surrounded by a group of bodyguards in black. Of course, Yang Ming was also surrounded in the middle. It could be seen that these bodyguards must have been retired mercenaries. Their skills were extraordinary. Of course, this was relative to ordinary people, but in the eyes of Yang Ming, they were not so terrible. He could only say that they were barely passable. These people were not hostile, so Yang Ming did not move. He was escorted by them. He and Alice went to the special passage and went to the elevator to the top floor of the Alice Casino. The top floor was the office area of the Alice Casino. There were no foreign guests here. They were all Alice's confidants. So, after going to the top floor, the bodyguards also dispersed. They were not as strict as before. When they came to the door of a room, Alice opened the door and said, "You rest here first. I will make arrangements. When it is time to play, I will call you." "Why do I feel like I am your employee?" Yang Ming was somewhat dissatisfied with Alice's tone of command. "Of course not." Alice smiled. "Aren't I making arrangements for you to fulfill your requirements? Well, then I will sleep. Call me after you are done. Remember to knock on the door. I prefer to sleep naked. When you break in, I can't guarantee what I will do," Yang Ming said with a smile. Alice glared at Yang Ming. She closed the door and went to do her work. Lying in bed, Yang Ming was, of course, not preparing to sleep, but thinking about the problem of Alice, this chick. This chick made Yang Ming feel a little suspicious. This kind of feeling was inexplicable. There was no reason for it. In short, it was very uncomfortable. Yang Ming didn't know what made Alice suspicious. In retrospect, it seemed that there was nothing, but his heart was always uneasy. From the appearance of Alice to asking him to help her gamble, Yang Ming had an indescribable strange feeling. My appearance in Europe should be a very accidental thing, right? After Alice saw me, why did she investigate something related to me? Although the incident at Macau's Nanching Casino could not be said to be very confidential, at the very least, it was not made public on a large scale. Yang Ming did not believe that Alice would investigate a person she saw. What if Alice had seen my video before? There was a possibility of this. Although it was relatively small, it was not impossible. Maybe Alice saw the video of me in Nanching Casino before, and then she saw me in Europe. That's not right, right? It seems that when I first saw Alice, she didn't know me. Old Buffon also introduced me to her, but she didn't have any reaction. Therefore, thinking of this, Yang Ming felt that Alice was more and more suspicious. A phone call sounded, interrupting Yang Ming's thoughts. He took out the phone and glanced at it. It was Li Chang. "Hello. Li Chang, what's the matter?" Yang Ming picked up the phone. "Carsi has agreed to our request to take back all the mines for a unified bidding, but there is a problem," Li Chang said until here and paused. "What's the problem?" asked Yang Ming. "The bidding rules here are not the same as ours." Li Chang hesitated and said, "So, I want to ask. Is it according to our way, or is it according to the unique way here? Different? What's the difference?" Yang Ming didn't expect there to be so many rules in the bidding, so he asked. "This is the case. Although there is also a closed bidding auction here, after the bid is made public, if someone can offer a higher price than the bid price, they are also eligible to get the right to operate the mine," Li Chang explained. "Oh. What is the difference between that and the auction?" Yang Ming frowned and asked, baffled. "No, there is still a difference." Li Chang said, "Brother Yang, listen to me continue. The rule here is that if others can give a higher price, then the winner of the bid can choose to give up or accept the challenge. Accept the challenge. What challenge?" The more Yang Ming listened, the more confused he felt. Probably the bad taste of the rich, and the laws here are more relaxed, so these people prefer to fight. Li Chang said with a wry smile, to put it bluntly, accepting the challenge is for both sides to send out a death warrior they have trained. The two sides will duel, and the winner will be the final winner. Underground boxing. Yang Ming was stunned and asked. It's almost like that. Li Chang nodded and said. Well, let's do it their way. Yang Ming felt that this was fair, and it would not affect his own benefits, so he agreed. So that they won't think that we have changed the rules. Okay, I understand. I will start preparing and give them a final ultimatum to get them ready to bid, said Li Chang. When Li Chang's rebidding notice was sent to the hands of the various mine owners, these mine owners who rarely talked to each other finally sat together in groups to discuss countermeasures. Mr. Murakami, what should we do? Let us rebid. Isn't it asking for our lives? Tiger, a mine owner who operated a gold mine, complained to a manganese mine owner next to him. What else can we do? Prepare the proposal and bid again. Mr. Murakami came here to make money. He didn't want to cause trouble. Although he might lose more than half of the money he earned in the first few years if he bid again this time, he didn't want to go against the local government. Why are you so cowardly? Tiger was so angry that he blew his beard and glared. Rebid? How much money will we lose? My previous 10 years of hard work are all in vain. So what? You can give up. You have made a lot of money, said Mr. Murakami. Damn, you are really a coward. Tiger couldn't help but curse. We have so many people. If we join forces, it is not a small force. How about we collectively protest? Protest? What protest? What's the use of protesting? Will they care about you? Mr. Murakami said disdainfully. Each of us has armed forces. We can form an alliance. I don't think they dare to act rashly. Tiger snorted and said. He no longer cared about Mr. Murakami. Instead, he said to another mine owner next to him, Am I right, Sicker? I don't think this is useful. Sicker snorted. How powerful is General Kars? It's not like you don't know. Chapter 1152. In Singapore, Li Ziqing was sitting leisurely in the Li's group and looking at the company's report. Although the company's performance had declined due to the financial crisis, this did not affect Li Ziqing's good mood. Compared to the large sum of money that they had swindled from the Huang family, these results were really nothing. Because the Li family had an iron mine in Country X, Li Ziqing also paid special attention to the news in Country X. He knew that General Kars had quickly pacified many armed forces in the country and truly mastered the internal affairs of Country X. The Li family and General Kars still had some friendship, so Li Ziqing was still very happy that General Kars had taken this step today. After all, after the environment there was better, Li Ziqing was considering whether to increase the investment in Country X. Who didn't want to earn money? Especially this kind of profit of hundreds of %, which made Li Ziqing very tempted. Therefore, he asked his youngest son, Li Tianyu, to pay attention to the news of Country X these days, and then report to him at all times. The phone rang, and Li Ziqing glanced at the transfer number of the call. Li Ziqing could confirm that it was Li Tianyu's call. There must be new news from there. Hello. Is it Tianyu? Li Ziqing picked up the phone with a smile. Father, something happened. Li Tianyu's voice sounded a little anxious. What happened? Li Ziqing frowned. Why are these two sons the same? Something happened so often. Can't they be more stable? The authorities of Country X want to take back all the minerals in the territory and then redistribute them. Said Li Tianyu. Oh. Does that mean we can get a bigger and better mine? Li Ziqing's heart moved, and he quickly asked. We can get it, but we have to bid. Li Tianyu explained. Bid? It's not a direct exchange. Li Ziqing was a little disappointed. He thought he could take this opportunity. General Kars could give their Li family a free gold mine or even a diamond mine. Not only is it not an exchange, but our iron mine will also be taken back, said Li Tianyu. What? The iron mine will also be taken back. Li Ziqing was shocked after listening. Why is it taken back? The notice has been issued. It said that the contract was signed with the previous interim government or armed forces. It is an invalid contract. All the minerals in the territory will be taken back and reopen the bidding, said Li Tianyu. Isn't this the same as what the Huang family encountered? Li Ziqing said after listening, but didn't we sign a contract with General Kars? This shouldn't belong to any other temporary government or armed forces, right? Now, the contract with General Kars. The notice. 2. Is. To the. To the 2. 2. To 2. 2. To the 2 his rebid. Does it mean that I can bid for a gold mine or a diamond mine? If Kars really stood firm, then the situation in Country X would be stable. He was not afraid that the contract would be voided halfway after signing it. The most important thing was that he had a good relationship with General Kars. Can he take care of me during the bidding? Thinking of this, Li Ziqing quickly called General Kars. Kars was reviewing some documents. He heard from his secretary that it was a call from Li Ziqing. He didn't want to answer, but after hesitating, he asked someone to transfer the call. After all, when he started his business, Li Ziqing gave him some help. Although the Li family had made a lot of money from the iron mine over the years, General Kars was still very polite to Li Ziqing. Hello, I am Kars. Kars picked up the phone. General Kars, hello. I am Li Ziqing. Li Ziqing introduced himself and said, I heard that all the hostile armed forces in Country X have been eliminated. Congratulations, General Kars. Hee, thank you. Kars didn't know why Li Ziqing called. Since Li Ziqing didn't say it directly, Kars had to smile perfunctorily. Since Li Ziqing came to congratulate him, Kars couldn't say anything more. Right, there is one thing. I heard that there is going to be a rebidding of all the mines. Li Ziqing also knew that he only had to say a few words. General Kars must be very busy. If he said too much, General Kars would be annoyed, so he went straight to the topic. And, there is such a thing. Why? Do you want to bid for a mining industry? Asked Kars. Yes, there is this plan, but there is one more thing. Li Ziqing said, our Li family's iron mine. We signed a contract with you. Do you think this time it won't be taken back? Oh, this thing. Kars hesitated and said, the contract you signed with me is correct, but this time it is operated by the military. I am not involved in this matter, the military is not your army. There should be no problem with this, right? Li Ziqing thought that Kars was talking to him in a bureaucratic tone, so he said quickly. The military is now separated from me. I am only responsible for internal affairs. I don't ask about the military. Kars felt that there was no need to explain too much to Li Ziqing. After all, this was a high-level matter. The Li family was just a small businessman. Then Li Ziqing was a little embarrassed. He didn't expect General Kars to say this. Well, when the time comes, you personally explain to the other side and show them our contract. There should be no problem. General Kars hesitated and said, if it really doesn't work, I will come forward. The reason why Kars said this was because this contract was indeed signed by him and Li Ziqing. Now that he went back on his word, it felt like he was smashing his own foot. After all, it was now the bidding stage. If those who came to bid saw that he had to go back on the contract he signed, then what credibility did he have? Li Ziqing said, "Now the situation on your side is stable. General Kars completely controls the overall situation. It is a good thing for us." "That's for sure." Li Tianyu said excitedly, "Father, which aspect should we invest in?" "We will definitely invest in gold mines or diamond mines with high profits." Li Ziqing said, "You need to pay attention to the bidding information. We will fight for it." "All right. I understand." Li Tianyu said hurriedly. If the family invested in gold mines or diamond mines here, then the overseas business would account for a large proportion of the family's overall business. As a result, his status and right to speak would increase in the future. "And then these things will be handed over to you." Li Ziqing said, "Inquire about the bidding rules. Tianjia and I may also go there." "We will bid together," said Li Ziqing. "Okay, as soon as I have news here, I will call you," said Li Tianyu. Hanging up the phone, Li Ziqing smiled and looked at the funds in the bank account on the computer. There was a mocking smile at the corner of his mouth. "Humph, Huang Xiaofei, I gave you face, but you didn't want it. Now I am using your money to invest in gold mines, but you can't get a penny." At the same time, Wang Xiaofei also got the news of Country X in Africa. Although he did not intend to think about the investment in Country X, the things that happened in Country X were still affecting his nerves. When he saw that all the minerals in Country X were ready to be recovered for unified distribution, Wang Xiaofei's mood was a lot more balanced. After all, he was not the first, and he would not be the last. When General Kars gained a foothold, he began to recover and reform all the minerals in the territory. He was just one step ahead of them. The only thing he was not reconciled with was that he was actually tricked by Li Ziqing and his son afterward, and he was cheated of 40 billion patakas. "Dad, are you still paying attention to Country X?" Huang Rongtian glanced at the laptop beside his father's bed and saw some news about Country X on it. General Kars decided to recover all the mining in the territory and rebid for distribution. Huang Xiaofei said, "We are not coincidental." Huang Rongtian nodded. "We were a little too hasty before. If we enter Country X now, there will definitely be no problems and worries." I didn't expect General Kars to have some skills. He quickly pacified all the armed forces in the territory and directly controlled the situation. "Yeah, I was too hasty. If I were not so anxious, I would wait until now and bid through normal channels. I can also get a good mine." Huang Xiaofei sighed and said with some disappointment. "Well, father, since things have passed, then don't think so much." Although Huang Rongtian was very regretful in his heart, there was no other way at the moment. After all, when he was preparing to invest in the gold mine of Country X for the first time, he was also in favor. Although he objected the second time, it could only be the pot calling the kettle black. What's more, now that his father was in such a state, how could he dare to speak more? What if his father took things too hard? "How is the company recently?" asked Huang Xiaofei. "AI." Huang Rongtian knew that the company's affairs could not be hidden from his father, so it was better to tell the truth, so he said, "The current situation is very bad. The bank is urging the repayment, and some of our customers have stopped cooperating with the company. It's difficult. If it really doesn't work, then apply for bankruptcy." Huang Xiaofei said with some helplessness, "Now that things have come to this point, it is irreversible. It's all my fault. But you are still young, and there is still a day for you to make a comeback." "That's right. So, father, don't worry too much. In your lifetime, you will definitely see the Huang Group revitalize." Huang Rongtian said firmly. In fact, when he said these words, his heart was beating like a drum. He didn't know if he could do it, but he said so to reassure his father and prevent him from taking things too hard. Okay, then I am looking forward to it. Huang Xiaofei also thought it through these 2 days, and he did not have the previous pessimistic thoughts. After all, life's ups and downs were common. His children were still young, and maybe there was a chance for them to make a comeback. Moreover, little sister's boyfriend is coming soon. You have to be happy. You can't be sick in bed like this when he comes, right? Huang Rongtian smiled. That's true. Huang Xiaofei also smiled after listening. It just so happens that my body is fine. I think I should be discharged from the hospital as soon as possible. I will also go to the company to see if there is anything I can help with. After all, this old face of mine still has some connections. Yang Ming did not expect that the local bidding actually had such a custom. It was really the cruel interest of the rich. It was like the slave owners in ancient Rome. However, in this backward small country, these mine owners were almost the same as slave owners, so Yang Ming had no way to ask them for anything. Every place had its own local rules. Although he was relatively strong, this kind of strong intervention to change the status quo was not necessarily a good thing. So, Yang Ming instructed Li Chang to do things according to the rules there. After waiting for a while, Alice's men sent a few sets of clothes for Yang Ming to choose from. They were all very stylish suits. Yang Ming casually picked one and put it on. Unexpectedly, Alice really prepared a white scarf for him. Yang Ming did not hesitate and put it on directly. Anyway, who knew him here? If he was embarrassed, it would be Alice. Although Yang Ming said it very casually, he had secretly begun to pay attention in his heart. Is this Park Jinan sick? Why does it seem like I have a deep hatred with him? I'm not a mortal enemy with him. It's just a competition between gambling skills. This guy actually wants to gamble with his life. Did he eat the wrong medicine? Yang Ming was very skeptical about the real purpose of this guy looking for him to gamble with. However, after thinking about it, I haven't offended anyone in the gambling world, right? Except for the people of Nanqing Casino. Could it be that he was sent by Nanqing Casino? It's impossible. Nanqing Casino knows my strength. If they send someone, isn't it tantamount to sending someone to their death? Moreover, this Park Jinan has also seen the video of my gambling. Does he have the confidence to win? Therefore, Yang Ming didn't care about playing with this Park Jinan. What Yang Ming cared about was his real purpose. Is it as simple as just comparing notes with me? However, even if Yang Ming asked directly at the moment, he believed that Park Jinan wouldn't tell the truth. Everything could only be taken one step at a time to see what kind of move Park Jinan would use in the end. One game to decide the winner or loser? Asked Yang Ming. Everyone prepares 50 chips until they lose all. Park Jinan said. As soon as Park Jinan's voice fell, the casino's people helped the two to prepare the chips. The reason why it was 50 chips was that the chips didn't count the value. The final bet was just their lives. The chips were piled up on the table of the two people. Each person had 50 small plastic pieces, which were the casino's special chips. Park Jinan took the towel handed over by the waiter on the side and wiped his hands. Generally, gambling masters would wipe their hands before gambling. This way, they could avoid static electricity on their hands. When they touched the cards, it was not easy to stick or have accidents. After Yang Ming took the towel, he didn't wipe his hands but wiped his face directly. Then, he threw it aside. I just slept. I was still a little confused. Now I'm wiping my face and I'm awake. Park Jinan had been accustomed to Yang Ming's unconventional play, so he didn't show too much inexplicable at this time. He just felt that Yang Ming didn't look like a gambling master at all. After the preparation work was done, the dealers also stood by the gambling table and began to shuffle the cards. In a big casino like Alice, those who could serve as such senior dealers were not ordinary people. They were more or less gambling masters. They could even shuffle the cards they wanted according to the casino's instructions. However, that was also for ordinary gamblers. In a real gambling master duel, it was impossible for them to do anything. It was easy to be seen through at a glance. Therefore, the dealer sent by Alice Casino today was only a dealer who was skilled in shuffling cards, but not proficient in gambling. Such a dealer was the fairest. No matter which side lost in the end, the casino couldn't be blamed. The dealer took out an unopened deck of poker cards and quickly tore off the packaging. Then, he took out the cards and spread them on the gambling table. This step was to check the cards. It was a necessary step in gambling to let both sides see if there was a problem with the cards. Park Jinan quickly glanced at the poker cards on the table and nodded, indicating that he had checked them. There was no problem. Yang Ming was too lazy to look at them one by one. When he saw Park Jinan nodding, he also waved his hand, indicating that there was no problem and they could start. In this case, it was impossible to cheat, so checking the cards was actually the same as not checking the cards. There was no difference. The dealer smiled and took the cards on the table in his hand, then he shuffled the cards neatly. When the dealer was about to deal the cards, Park Jinan suddenly said, "Wait a minute. What's the matter?" The dealer stopped his movements with some doubts and looked at Park Jinan. "Wait a minute. Let him decide which side to deal with first. Otherwise, when he loses, I don't want him to use this excuse to deny it." Park Jinan was very generous and waved his hand. Yang Ming was very disdainful of Park Jinan's pretending to be generous. To put it nicely, it was magnanimous. To put it bluntly, it was arrogant. Even if you were pretending, you shouldn't do it like this. Are you sure that you can win? Yang Ming looked at Park Jinan with interest. He didn't know where his confidence came from. "It's hard to say for others, but for you." Park Jinan smiled. "I'm the king of gambling in Korea. Your country doesn't seem to allow gambling, right?" Yang Ming snorted. "Then come on. I'll let you see what is called a frog at the bottom of the well. You deal the cards to him first."